Chapter 22:18. After Si Luo won, the next match began. Liao Southyard's king Xiao Feng was up against Xindu faction's Dong Su. Xiandu sect. Song Qing Shu had some impression of that sect. Xia Qingqing and Jiao Wan had a lot of conflicts with that sect in the early years. In addition, during the Wu Dang clan battle, Taoist Huang Mu, who had ambushed Zhang Sanfeng in Spirit Mountain, was also from Xiandu sect. If Dong Su was as strong as Huang Mu, he would be a top-class elite. Song Qing Shu soon realized that he was overthinking things. Dong Su, who was on the stage, said, "King Zhao's martial arts are well known to me. I know very well that I am not a match for King Xiao. I admit defeat in this match." Xiao Feng was shocked, but he still bowed and said, "You are too kind." Compared to the previous matches, there were not many boos. Xiao Feng was too famous, and everyone understood. They admired Dong Su's generosity for admitting defeat so easily. The next match was between Zhuang Juxian, the leader of the beggar sect, and Wang Xiaoshan, a disciple of the One Zhou Tai Chi faction. The people around them immediately started discussing among themselves. Isn't Huang Rong the leader of the beggar sect? Why is there a change? Huh? Isn't Xiao Feng the leader? Your information is outdated. Huang Rong stepped down a long time ago. The beggar sect split into three. This Zhuang Juxian should be the new leader of the Hebei branch. As for Xiao Feng, he has been found out to be a chitin. How can he be the leader of the beggar sect? Who is this Zhuang Juxian? I have never heard of him. Song Qing Shu knew who Zhuang Juxian was, but he was more concerned about the Tai Chi faction disciple. Since it was called Tai Chi faction, it had to be related to Wu Dang faction. On Hua Qingtong's side, Chen Zhao was explaining to her, "Brother Zhao is from the Tai Chi faction. This person should be his junior. I wonder how strong he is compared to Brother Zhao. If this Zhuang Juxian is the leader of the beggar sect, he must be very good. I am afraid he is no match for him." Hua Qingtong naturally knew that the third Brother Zhao, that Chen Zhao was referring to his thousand-armed Buddha, Zhao Banshan. In her opinion, if Zhao Banshan were to come personally, they might have a chance of winning. However, this young man probably had no chance of winning at all. This Wang Xiaoshan was a disciple of the Tai Chi sect, and the martial arts he used was the soft way to overcome the hard. At the same time, like Zhao Banshan, he also had some remarkable hidden weapon skills. Unfortunately, Zhuang Juxian cultivated the Ice Cicada and the Yi Jin Jing's special poison attack. The moment the two of them clashed, Wang Xiaoshan felt a chill rush into his heart and lungs. It felt as if his entire body was frozen. However, Zhuang Juxian didn't care so much. He immediately followed up with an attack, causing his opponent to vomit blood and fall off the stage. A silhouette flashed past, and Xiao Feng had already caught him. He noticed the bruises on Zhuang Juxian's lips. Poison. Xiao Feng circulated his internal energy to help Zhuang Juxian force out the poison and treat his injuries. At the same time, he glared at Zhuang Juxian furiously. "Your Excellency's attack is very vicious." Zhuang Juxian snorted coldly in a low, muffled voice. "Who asked you to pretend to be a good person here?" After he finished speaking, he swaggered back to the beggar's sect disciples. After the fight that night, he knew that now was not the time to settle the score with Xiao Feng. There was an uproar in the arena. Some were denouncing him, and some were gloating over his misfortune. Yang Xiao frowned and said to Yin Yuang, "This person's martial arts is too vicious. Yuang, you have to be careful. Your opponent in the next round might be him." Yin Yuang snorted. "Don't worry. That good-for-nothing daughter of mine is still practicing the 1,000 spider, 10,000 poisonous hands. I've seen many people as vicious as this." Next round, Yin Yuang of the Ming Dynasty versus Gui Yinji of the Crouching Bull sect, announced the official on the stage. The 8th book? Someone immediately reacted. Is this Crouching Bull sect the sect that Kabaisui was in when the Muron clan killed him in his own coin? It seems so. I heard that Yin Yuang's martial arts are no longer below that of the white-browed Eagle King of the past. This Gui Yinji probably won't be able to beat him. Song Qingshu blinked, suspecting that he had misheard. "Yin Yuang? His daughter was already so old, and he already had a wife and concubines. The people from Class 1 Hall were too naive. How could they let someone with such a background in? Could it be that after his second wife was killed by Li, he never married again? Speaking of Li, Song Qingshu suddenly realized that he had never seen her since he came to this world. He heard that she looked very similar to her aunt Susu. She looks like Zhang Wuji's mother. Song Qingshu's old face suddenly heated up. It turned out that he had involuntarily come up with a bold idea, but he quickly suppressed it. At the same time, he secretly despised himself for thinking about all kinds of nonsense all day long. Gua Yinji's weapon was the soul-chasing whip, and when he used it, it would create wind. It was clear that after Murong Bo killed their sect leader, he became courageous and worked hard on it. It was a pity that the upper limit of the sect's martial arts was not high enough. No matter how skilled he was, he could not be considered a true elite. Yin Yawang's Eagle Claw technique might not be as good as his father, White-Browed Eagle King, but it was at least 70 to 80% of it. Now, he was also the guardian king of the Ming dynasty. How could Crouching Bull's sect defeat him? Yin Yuang quickly found an opening in Gui Yinji's soul-chasing whip. He used Eagle Claw capture and grabbed the weapon with his bare hands. Yin Yuang did not continue attacking. He wrapped his fist in his palm and said, "Thank you for letting me win. Thank you for showing mercy." Gui Yinji's face turned pale. If his opponent had taken advantage of the situation just now, he could have broken his wrist. Next was Liao's East Elixir King, Yelu Qi, against the mysterious Finger School's young master, Shangwan Feng. Other than Plum Village's black and white master, who had mastered the mysterious heavenly finger, the rest of the mysterious Finger School's members were not much of a threat. The current master, Shangwan Taisheng and Wen Zuweng, were known as the wine and tobacco immortals. They were good at using a tobacco pipe as a weapon, and their martial arts were mediocre. Even if Shangwan Taisheng came, he would not be Yelu Qi's match. Suddenly, there was a cry of surprise from the crowd. Song Qingshu looked up and saw Yelu Qi lying on the ground. Shangwan Feng had a proud look on his face. "Thank you for letting me win." Xiao Feng was the first to jump onto the stage. After checking that Yelu Qi had only fainted, he heaved a sigh of relief. He stared coldly at Shangwan Feng and said, "Your Excellency is very calculative." Shangwan Feng smiled and said, "Hero Xiao, as the king of Liao South Yard, I believe you understand that all is fair in war. Very well, I look forward to fighting you next time." Xiao Feng scoffed and brought Yelu Qi down from the stage. What happened? Many people still did not see what happened clearly. The yellow-robed woman snorted softly. Yelu Qi was holding back and had already subdued his opponent. Unfortunately, Shangwan Feng suddenly blew out a light, smoke from his pipe, and Yelu Qi fell for it. I don't know if the smoke was poisonous. Only then did Song Qingshu remember that although they were both immortals, the immortals of smoke and wine were far inferior to the two immortals of the Ming dynasty. Moreover, Shangwan Taisheng and the others were of low moral standing and were good at blowing out incense from their pipes. According to the original plot, he would have drugged Sang Fei Hong at the Fukong World Summit, but he would have been exposed by Cheng Lingsu and killed instead. Of course, because of his participation in the plot and the fact that Hu Fei and Cheng Lingsu were still young, these plots had not happened yet. Thinking of this, he suddenly froze. He counted with his fingers. It had been a few years since he came to this world. Hu Fei and Cheng Lingsu had probably grown up to be a young man and a young lady. These two could be considered childhood sweethearts, but he did not know if they could be together. Chapter 2219. Next, it was a disciple from an unknown sect versus a contestant from an escort agency. Both the sect and the name of the two contestants were Lu Runjia. Song Qingshu did not even bother to remember their names. The two of them fought for a while, and finally, the disciple from the escort agency won. Then it was Xuzhu's turn to fight against Bao Niu from the Blood Knife School. Hearing the identity of the Shaolin disciple, the audience booed. Even monks could come to find a spouse. People's morals were not what they used to be. The senior monks of the Shaolin Temple felt embarrassed, but they kept reminding themselves that they were fighting for a great goal. It was nothing to be criticized and wronged in a short period of time. As the saying goes, if I don't go to hell, who will? Different from the others who were paying attention to Shuju, Song Qing-shu was curiously looking at his opponent. The Blood Knife School was still standing strong. Last time, the Blood Knife Ancestor was killed by Qing. He thought the Blood Knife Ancestor had already disappeared. The disciples of the Blood Knife Ancestor were all from the Bao generation. For example, Bao Xiong and the others were good at martial arts. This person was called Bao Niu, and he must be the strongest disciple of the Blood Knife School. Unfortunately, even if the Blood Knife Ancestor came, he would not be a match for Shuju, let alone his disciples and grand disciples. There were no surprises in the competition. Bao Niu screamed and fell to the ground. The winner was decided. Seeing how powerful Shuju was, the boos from the audience became even louder. If the monk ended up marrying the princess, it would be really depressing. Song Qing-shu was deep in thought. Shuju's martial arts seemed to have improved again. He must have received the teachings of the sweeping monk. He wondered how the sweeping monk had recovered. The next battle was between Mu Jiansheng from the Mu Palace of Yunnan and Qingling Zi from the Kunlun sect. Song Qing-shu didn't expect that Mu Jiansheng would also appear here. Presumably, it was because he was getting older and the other people in the Mu imperial residence were beginning to worry about his marriage. After all, the Mu imperial residence only had one bloodline, and if the line ended here, they would be letting down their ancestors. I need to find a chance to arrange a marriage for him. Song Qing-shu thought to himself. After all, the other party was his brother-in-law. Speaking of which, he had not seen Mu Jianpane for a long time. They had been in charge of training the Navy on Divine Dragon Island. These 2 years had been really tough. Sometimes, Song Qing-shu also felt that he was not a good person. He had provoked her, and they had not been together for a long time. He had not fulfilled his responsibility as a man. Of course, a large part of the reason he had such thoughts was that he came from the modern world. The values he had received since he was young had made him treat women as equals. In fact, in this era, no one in a position of power would have such troubles and guilt as he did. This Qing Lingzi's martial arts seemed to have surpassed Yi Taichung, the Kunlun sect leader. The yellow-robed woman exclaimed in surprise. She had seen Yi Taichung and his wife fight at the lion-slaughtering assembly, so she could naturally tell. I heard that the Kunlun sect also has one of the 3 saints of Kunlun, Yizu Dao. His kung fu is even more unfathomable. The little girl named Qing at the Golden Snake meeting seems to also come from the Kunlun Mountain. It seems that the Kunlun sect is indeed a place of crouching tigers and hidden dragons. Shui Baochai was in the Imperial City Department, so she was naturally familiar with this information. Golden Snake meeting. Hearing the information related to that man, the yellow-robed woman knitted her brows, feeling somewhat vexed. On the other hand, Song Qing-shu's memories were evoked. He did not know when he would be able to see Qing again. The martial arts of the Mu household were more suitable for close combat on the battlefield. Against the experts of the major sects of Jianghu, it was clearly somewhat insufficient. After exchanging a dozen or so blows, Mu Jianxing knew that he was no match for Qing. He jumped out of the ring and calmly admitted defeat. He was born with a handsome appearance, and his attitude was so modest that he gained the favor of many passers-by. I heard that his younger sister is the Prince of Qi's confidant. The Prince of Qi's standards are so high, and the women by his side are all heavenly beauties. With such a beautiful younger sister, it is no wonder that the little Duke is so handsome. Shui Baochai could not help but sigh. The yellow-robed woman was immediately annoyed. Can you not mention that person at every turn? Fine. I won't mention it. Shui Baochai's eyes curved like crescent moons. A guess that had always been in her heart had been confirmed. The next match was between Ku Jun of the Ku clan of Lanzhou and a disciple of the Hung Mountain sect. In the past, the Hung Mountain sect had been severely wounded by the Iron Palm Gang's master, Qiu Qianren. Later on, the Song Mountain sect had forced the sect master, Lu Zhengfeng, to death. At present, the sect only had Mo De as an expert, and its reputation could be said to be greatly reduced. Everyone originally thought that this would be another fight between rookies. They did not expect that the disciple of the Ku clan would make such a stunning move. 7 kinds of hidden weapons were launched simultaneously, instantly killing his opponent. Okay, the spectators in the drill ground immediately burst into discussion. This hidden weapon technique is somewhat formidable. The Ku clan of Lanzhou was founded with 7 kinds of hidden weapons. People call them the Ku clan's 7 verdant sects. This is their special skill. Which 7 verdant sects? Didn't you see it just now? Sleeve dart, flying locust stone, iron bodhi, iron caltrip, flying dagger, steel dart, funeral doornail. Song Qingshu also nodded secretly. These 7 kinds of hidden weapons were extremely common, but the launching method passed down in the Ku clan was different. The dagger was embedded with a stone, and the nail was embedded with a dart. Moreover, these hidden weapons could automatically collide in the air, and the accuracy was crooked, making it extremely difficult to dodge. With such an exquisite technique, many people who were more skilled than him would probably lose to him. The next match was Xiaowu's turn. Although Xiaowu and Xiaowu's talent was average, they had after all learned from Guijing and Huangrong since they were young. Naturally, they were better than the disciples of ordinary sects in the Jianghu. Why are these 2 brothers so lucky? One of them advanced directly without an opponent, and the other one encountered such a weak chicken. Xue Pan was about to go on stage. Seeing that others advanced so easily, he felt it was quite unfair. Song Qingshu patted him on the shoulder and looked at him sympathetically. Admit defeat as soon as possible, or you might be in danger. Because this fool's opponent was the Japanese samurai, Sasaki Kojiro. Xue Pan braced himself and said, "As a man, how can I admit defeat so easily?" Xue Baochai on the side was a little anxious. "You should listen to Baoyu. According to the information we found, this person defeated all the masters in Japan with a move called Return of the Swallow. No one who has seen his Return of the Swallow has survived." Xue Pan's face turned pale. "So cruel?" The woman in yellow comforted her. "Baochai, you don't have to worry too much. Sasaki's Return of the Swallow won't be used easily. Moreover, Xue Pan's martial arts are far inferior to his, so he won't have to use that ultimate move." Xue Baochai still looked nervous. "I only have one brother. If something happens to him, how can I explain it to my parents?" Song Qingshu said, "Don't worry, I'm here. I won't let anything happen to him." Xue Pan had been good to him recently, and he was quite loyal. Moreover, he had a relationship with Xue Baochai. Naturally, he wouldn't sit back and watch his brother die. "You?" Xue Baochai had a strange expression on her face. She didn't know where his confidence came from. Song Qingshu came back to his senses. He smiled awkwardly and said, "I'm saying that my luck has always been good. With me protecting him, he'll be fine." The woman in yellow rolled her eyes. She then said to Xue Baochai, "Don't worry, I'll help if things go south." Xue Baochai heaved a sigh of relief. "Thank you, Sister Yang." Lu Shidao suddenly walked over and said to Xue Pan, "I wish Brother Xue victory in advance." Chapter 22:20. Hearing LV Shidao's words, Xue Pan's bragging came out again. He patted his chest loudly and said, "Don't worry, I'll beat up the Japanese and make our dynasty proud." Xue Baochai and the yellow-shirted woman rolled their eyes. They were already numb to Xue Pan's bragging. After Xue Pan went up the stage, Sasaki Kojiro looked at him coldly and said, "I heard that you're going to beat me up?" He was skilled, and Southern Song did not deliberately lower his voice, so it was not surprising that he heard him. Xue Pan complained inwardly, but he could not lose his momentum. So what? Sasaki snorted and suddenly appeared in front of Xue Pan. Before Xue Pan could react, he was kicked in the knee and knelt on the ground. "He's so fast," Xue Baochai exclaimed. Even the yellow-shirted woman looked serious. If she was not prepared in advance, she might not have been able to avoid it. Song Qingshu had seen his swallow attack. To use the amazing swallow attack, body movement was the most important. Obviously, he had put a lot of effort in his footwork. Who's fighting who now? Sasaki Kojiro stood in front of Xue Pan and looked down at him. F***CK. Xue Pan had always been a bully in Lin City. He had never been bullied like this. Although he knew he should admit defeat, the anger in his chest made him unable to speak. Shui Pan unsheathed his sword, but it pierced the air. Good job. Many people on Southern Song's side did not know what was going on. Seeing that he began to fight back, they all cheered for Shui Pan. Among them, the LV brothers cheered the most. Something's wrong. Song Qingshu frowned. With Shui Pan's speed, there was no need for Sasaki to retreat. He could have knocked down Shui Pan's weapon. Why did he retreat? With a loud roar, Shui Pan charged forward with his sword in hand. The Shui clan's inherited sword technique was brilliant to begin with. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to produce a top-notch swordsman like Shui Yuan. Although Shui Pan's skills weren't that great, the power he unleashed at this moment was far beyond his usual level due to his rage, causing the passers-by to cheer incessantly. The two of them fought back and forth on the stage. For a time, they were evenly matched. The spectators thought that Shui Pan had been careless at the start and were excited to see such a close match. Could it be that this famous Japanese swordsman doesn't live up to his name? Shui Baochai was puzzled. She thought that if it were her, she would have already defeated her brother. Why was he still fighting here? Right at this moment, Shui Pan used the killing move of the Shui clan swordplay. For a moment, the swordplay was incomparably sharp, causing Sasaki Kojiro to stagger backward. Something's wrong. The yellow-robed woman subconsciously straightened her body. She also realized that something was wrong. Seeing that he had fallen into the sword wind, a cold smile appeared on Sasaki Kojiro's lips. Of course, there was no need for him to deliberately show weakness when dealing with this hedonistic son. The reason why he did this was to avoid the trouble of killing him later. After all, this was a martial arts competition for a spouse. The Western Xia side definitely did not want to see blood splattered on the spot. They had also announced the punishment for intentional murder in advance. However, swords had no eyes. If the two of them were too close in strength and could not hold back in a moment and accidentally killed the other party, the consequences would be much smaller. As for why they wanted to kill this hedonistic son, Sasaki Kojiro also did not understand. There was no enmity between the two parties. It was the Mongolians who had sent word that someone wanted Shui Pan's life. In the end, the Mongolian diplomatic mission had suffered such a devastating blow because of the deal with the Japanese. Hideo, you had always been worried that the Mongolians would vent their anger on him. Baiyu, fortunately, Shueliwu did not blame them. He only sent a message asking them to help him get rid of a person. For such a good thing, how could Hideo refuse to provoke the Mongolians? He ordered Sasaki Kojiro to get rid of the other party on the stage. As for the fact that Shui Pan was the son of a powerful Southern Song minister, Hideo did not care about it all. Firstly, the Southern Song dynasty had always been weak against outsiders. Secondly, even if the Southern Song dynasty wanted revenge, there was an ocean between them. What could they do to the Japanese? With a flash of cold light, Sasaki Kojiro slashed his blade at Shui Pan's neck. Shui Pan also realized that death was approaching. In that instant, his eyes widened. However, he was already too old and could not retreat even if he wanted to. Watch out! The yellow-shirt woman and Shui Baochai both cried out in alarm and flew towards the stage. In that instant, the gap between the two women's skills could be seen. The yellow-shirt woman was obviously much faster. However, the yellow-shirt woman was also filled with regret. She should have acted earlier when she saw that something was wrong. Now that they were too far away, Shui Pan would probably be dead by the time she arrived. However, who would have thought that the other party would directly kill him even though there was no enmity between the two parties? Sasaki Kojiro naturally saw the two people rushing over. He had absolute confidence in his blade technique. He could completely cut Shui Pan's throat with one strike, and then face the yellow-shirt woman's attack with his sword. However, just as the blade was about to cut Shui Pan's throat, his expression suddenly changed. He immediately used his blade to block in front of him. Ding! With a crisp sound, his figure couldn't help but sway. At this moment, the yellow-shirt woman had already arrived, and the two of them instantly exchanged blows. Seeing that Sasaki Kojiro was at a disadvantage, Hidekitsu immediately stood up. What you guys doing? We agreed to have a duel on the stage. Why did a group of people go on stage? Isn't it because you despicably assassinated him? By this time, the yellow-shirted woman had already saved Shui Pan. She didn't continue fighting and instead protected him behind her with Shui Baochai. Assassin? Is he dead? I only saw you guys swarming up. Hidekitsa loudly shouted. What happened just now happened in a flash. Many people couldn't see what happened. They only saw the two people fighting on the stage, and then the people from Southern Song's side swarming up. They couldn't help but start criticizing them. Shui Baochai only breathed a sigh of relief when she saw that her brother wasn't really injured. We'll just admit defeat this round. She didn't know why the other party wanted to kill her brother, so she didn't dare let him take any more risks. Shui Pan was the successor of the Shui family. If anything happened to him, how would she explain it to her parents? The yellow-shirted woman cast a deep glance at Sasaki Kojiro. If there's a chance in the future, I'll look for you and ask for guidance. Sasaki Kojiro's face was a little pale. I'll be happy to keep you company. When they saw that the chaos on the stage had died down, the officials from Class 1 Hall began to announce the next opponent. Ryong Mansion's Wang Baobao versus West Region's Prodigal Eagle Flight. Suddenly, the screams of many women could be heard in the drill ground. A tall and thin young man in white slowly walked onto the ring. His eyes were like stars, and there was a hint of evil in them. He really had the charm to seduce women's souls. His skin was white and smooth like a girl's, and his face was angular but slightly thin. There was a faint smile on his face, which added to his ability to make women fall head over heels for him. Chapter 22-21. Song Qing-shu finally remembered who this person was. He was a Mongolian expert who appeared in overturning the rain and clouds. He had a high status in the Demon Palace and was a good friend of the little demon master, Feng Yiyu. Both his intelligence and martial arts skills were top-notch. Even the demon master, Pang Ban, looked up to him. This time, he had followed Su Liawu to Xingqing Manor. That night, Madame Jeanne had been captured by him. It was clear that he had also been aroused by Madame Jeanne's voluptuous beauty. Unfortunately, she was a woman that Su Liawu had specifically requested for. Left with no other choice, he had immediately gone to a brothel to seek pleasure and vent his lust. On the arena, Ying Fei had a pair of crossed hooks on his back. His tall and slender body had an indescribable laziness, but also a heroic aura, forming a strong attraction. Damn, I hate handsome men the most, especially those who are more handsome than me. Shui Pan returned to his seat and drank a few big bowls of tea to suppress his shock. He gradually recovered. Glaring at Ying Fei on the arena, Shui Pan seemed to be venting the negative emotions that had accumulated in the arena. Look at him. You are an expert at playing with women. Scumbag. Song Qing-shu nodded in agreement. It was rare for him to have the same opinion as Shui Pan. The yellow-robed girl on the side was amused. You people bully people in Lin and all day long, and you still have a nerve to call someone a scumbag? At this time, Wang Baobao also walked onto the arena. Looking at the flirtatious man opposite him, he frowned. Does Su Liawu not have any subordinates? Did he send a shameless pervert to stop me? Many women were charmed by Ying Fei, but he was also a heartless devil. No matter how beautiful a woman was, once he got her, he would leave after playing with her and never look back. At the same time, he was cruel by nature and had a very strong possessive nature. Although he abandoned the women he had played with, if he knew that the women he had abandoned were truly in love with other men, he would not hesitate to kill those men, because he wanted the women he had possessed to suffer for the rest of their lives because they missed him. Wang Baobao was also from Mongolia, so he naturally knew about Ying Fei's background. It was not an exaggeration to call him a shameless pervert. The smile on Ying Fei's face stiffened. What do you mean? I'm not King Su Liawu's subordinate. You don't dare to call him by his name. If that's not a guilty conscience, then what is it? Wang Baobao sneered. We all know what to do. Don't be so wishy-washy. Let's begin. Swords have no eyes. South River King, be careful of my double hooks. Ying Fei removed the soul, severing double hooks from his back. Although he was smiling, his eyes were cold. Why? Do you want to learn from that Japanese and pretend to kill me on the stage? Wang Baobao also took out his sword. Ing Fei chuckled and said, Your Highness is too serious. I can also die in your hands. After saying that, he bowed to the audience. Everyone, please bear witness. If I am accidentally injured or killed by the king of Hunan's sword, it is because I am not skilled enough. I have nothing to do with anyone. Please do not make things difficult for the king of Hunan. His outstanding appearance, coupled with his bearing, won him the favor of many people. However, Wang Baobao knew his background and wasn't fooled at all. You want me to do the same thing as you to make a statement before the battle? Don't worry, I'm not as hypocritical as you guys. He then turned to the people of the Ruyang Manor and instructed, Listen up. If I am accidentally injured or killed by this perverted thief, you guys are swarm him and tear him into pieces. Understood. The warriors of the Ruyang Manor replied in unison. Many people were secretly shocked. It was no wonder that Wang Baobao was known as a famous general. His ability to command troops was indeed very strong. Sea of Cloud Song Qing-shu, who was below the stage, was amused. This brother-in-law of his was really an interesting person. Why did the words brother-in-law sound so familiar? He glanced at Mu Jiansheng in the distance, then at Shui Pan who was beside him, wondering if this silly fellow would also become his brother-in-law in the future. On the stage, Ing Fei was clearly choked by Wang Baobao's reply. Your Highness, aren't you being too ungentlemanly? Dealing with a gentleman is a gentleman's way. Dealing with a villain is naturally a villain's way. Wang Baobao was unaffected. Su Liuwu, who had been watching the show, finally spoke up. Wang Baobao, threatening your opponent in advance like this, using your power to oppress them, does this count as breaking the rules? This is a marriage contest, not a fight for the #1 position in the world. It is a test of the overall strength of the participants. Ing Fei can also have his subordinates threaten me. Wang Baobao rolled his eyes at him. Some people should rest properly if their legs are broken. Stop jumping around here. Su Liuwu was so angry he almost jumped up. Unfortunately, his broken legs did not allow him to do something that defied the laws of physics. Wang Baobao was in a good mood after teasing Su Liuwu. He turned around to look at Ing Fei. Are you going to fight or not? Your Highness, please enlighten me. Ing Fei was also furious at this moment, waving the 2 hooks in his hands to attack. Those who used strange weapons in the Jianghu all walked a treacherous and vicious path. He was no exception. Adding on the fact that he came from the West region, his attacks were completely different from those of the Central Plains. Many people below the stage sucked in a breath of cold air, rejoicing that they were not facing him on the stage. Wang Baobao's sword technique was much more moderate. Song Qing-shu could even see the shadows of Shaolin, Kunlun, Amei, Huashan, and Kong Tong. It must have been when Wan and Temple had defeated the 6 great sects in one fell swoop and collected the essence of the sword techniques of each sect. Wang Baobao seemed to have great talent in sword techniques. He could easily use the sword techniques of each sect, and he used them at the right time. At the same time, his attacks were very personal with the air of king. In the Jianghu, he could definitely be considered a famous swordsman. Strange. Song Qing-shu could not understand. The last time he had seen Wang Baobao in the Southern Song, his martial arts had only been so. But now, his martial arts had reached a higher level, and even his inner power was no small matter. After all, inner power was not something that could be achieved quickly. How could one make such a huge leap in quality in such a short period of time? But it wasn't like there were no methods at all. The sect of Sun and Moon's great art of absorbing stars, the carefree sex art of the North Sea, and the legendary art of the sky demon practiced by Temujin could all help one become a master in a short period of time. With the power and status of the Ryong Palace, it wouldn't be a problem for them to find a few top-notch masters to impart their skills to him, much less to find a lot of cauldrons for him to absorb. However, this kind of rapid progress would often result in an unstable foundation, and it would be impossible for one to pursue the way of heaven. No one knew which type Wang Baobao belonged to. At this time, Ing Fei's figure on the stage was getting faster and faster. Suddenly, he seemed to have disappeared into thin air. In the blink of an eye, the crowd found that he had appeared behind Wang Baobao. The long hooks in his hands hooked onto both sides of Wang Baobao's waist at an unbelievable angle. The men below the stage all gasped. Both of Wang Baobao's waist were injured, and the rest of his life would be gone. This guy's moves were too vicious. A sinister smile flashed across Ying Fei's face. His hooks cut with all their might, obviously intending to take Wang Baobao's life. Even Song Qingshu couldn't help but sit up straight. If he let anything happen to Wang Baobao in front of him, wouldn't Zhaomin blame him for the rest of his life? But on the stage, Ying Fei's expression suddenly changed because he realized that his normally sharp hooks were now hooked onto a piece of metal, unable to harm it in the slightest. Chapter 22:22. Working hard to update. Please refresh later. This chapter is working hard to updating. Please refresh later. Hey handsome guys and beautiful girls visiting us on mobile. Please register as a member first. Register as a member of this site and use the bookmark function for easier reading. If this chapter is about the author asking for votes, please skip to the next chapter. Please bookmark this page so that you can read it later. Otherwise, you won't be able to find this chapter. Author, Lin Yu, Jiang Yin, Lin Yu, Jiang Yin %3, A %2F %2F %2FBOOK %2F 18% 2F1 8289 %2F content summary. Before his master left, he left Wen Tian with a life-saving mantra of the sect, saying that if he practiced it diligently, there would be miraculous results. P.S. All the spells, Taoist incantations, cultivation methods, and secret skills in this book are all from the sect's secret collection. Those who do not have the true inheritance should not rashly practice it. Remember this. Be careful, be careful. E3%, 80%, 80%, E6%, 9C%, 80%, E4% BD%, B3%, E5%, A5% B3%, E5%, A9% BF%, E6% 9, E% 97%, E7%, B% BD%, E6% B, 1% 9F%, E9%, A2% 9C. E8% BD%, AC%, E9%, 80%, 81%, E9%, 97%, 8%, E5% 9C% B0%, E5% 9D%, 80% EF% BC% 9, A% 3, A% 2F% 2F% 2FBOOK% 2F 18% 2F1 8289% 2F%, 0A% 0, A%, E3% 80%, 80%, E3% 80%, 80%, 3, A% 2F%, 2F%, 2FBOOK%, 2F 18%, 2F1 8289%, 2F% 0, A% 0, A%, E3% 80%, 80%, E3% 80%, 80%, E5% 86%, 85%, 5% AE% B9%, E8% AF% 95%, E8% AF% BB% EF% BC% 9, A% 3, A% 2F% 2F% 2FBOOK% 2F 18% 2F1 8289%. Chapter 1. Seeing himself cremated. I'm sorry, we've tried our best. Let's prepare for our funeral. The voice of the doctor outside the ward was very soft, but Lin Yu, who was lying on the bed, heard it clearly. Perhaps a person's sense of hearing would become extremely sensitive before they died, especially a mother's cry, which was exceptionally sharp. Lin Yu was not the first person to sacrifice his life for a just cause. He did not regret it, but he felt sorry for his mother. His father died early, and his mother single-handedly brought him up. He did not know how much hardship she had suffered. Now, he was admitted to Qinghai City People's Hospital with excellent grades, and his mother's life was just about to brighten up. He did not expect such an accident to happen. God damn it, Lin Yu cursed in a low voice. His eyelids could no longer hold on and slowly closed. My son, a mournful cry abruptly woke Lin Yu up. He opened his eyes and discovered that he was actually standing at the end of the bed, and his mother was wailing loudly on the bed. "Mom, why are you crying? Aren't I right here?" Lin Yu was overjoyed, thinking that he had magically recovered. He reached out and patted his mother, only to find that his hand had gone through her body. His mother did not react at all and continued to cry bitterly on the bed. Lin Yu's expression changed. He raised his head and saw another version of himself lying on the bed. His face was shriveled and pale. Clearly, he was no longer alive. "I'm dead." Lin Yu lowered his head and looked at himself standing at the end of the bed. He realized that his body was a little pale and slightly transparent. Lin Yu was shocked. It turned out that a person really did have a soul after death. Yet no matter what he said or did, his mother could not feel it. With the help of the nurse, his mother endured the pain and helped Lin Yu put on the shroud. Then, the caretakers moved his body onto the funeral car. His mother followed him into the car and sat next to his body. She held his hand tightly, and tears kept flowing out of her red and swollen eyes. Don't worry and go. I'll go down and accompany you immediately after I'm done here." To her, her son was her everything. Now that her son was dead, there was no longer any meaning for her to live in this world. Hearing that his mother wanted to commit suicide, Lin Yu immediately panicked. He imitated the scene in the movies and lay down on the corpse, but it did not work. Every time he sat up, only his own soul remained. The car soon arrived at the crematorium. After paying, the staff put on simple makeup for Lin Yu and gave his mother a number plate. Then, the crematorium staff pushed Lin Yu's body to the cremation hall. No! The moment the crematorium staff pushed his body into the crematorium, Lin Yu instantly collapsed. As his body burned, Lin Yu felt his consciousness weakening. There were countless faint spots of light flowing around his body, and his soul was also slowly fading. At the same time, another world began to flash before his eyes. All he could see was endless darkness, mixed with bright red flames and shrill screams. Hell, this was the first thought that flashed through Lin Yu's consciousness. A strong sense of fear instantly swallowed him. His soul subconsciously dashed around in the air, and the spots of light continued to float out of his soul. They were moving faster and faster. The world of hell in his eyes became clearer, and he could hear a mysterious hoarse voice calling out to him from below. At that moment, Lin Yu's body in the crematorium was almost completely burned out. Among the ashes, a jade-colored pendant suddenly shone brightly in the fire. This was left to Lin Yu by his grandfather when he passed away. He had been wearing it since he was young. When he wore the shroud, his mother purposely did not take it off. The light from the pendant grew brighter and brighter. Then, it cracked with a bang, and a wisp of jade-green light shot out from the pendant, attaching itself to Lin Yu's soul. Then, an old voice sounded in his mind. "I am your ancestor's sage. From today onwards, you are my successor. You will receive my medical skills, and you will help others and yourself by practicing medicine." Then, the voice dissipated, and a huge amount of information suddenly filled Lin Yu's mind. Medical skills, cultivation techniques, and some of his ancestors' traveling experiences all surged into Lin Yu's mind. Looking at the information in his mind, Lin Yu felt very excited, as if he had opened the door to a new world. However, this excitement was fleeting. What was the use of obtaining the secret technique? He was already a dead man who was about to go to hell. As this thought flashed through Lin Yu's mind, a memory about the soul resurrection technique suddenly popped up. The memory showed that through the soul resurrection technique, a person whose soul had not dissipated after death could be reborn by possessing a body. However, Lin Yu's physical body had already turned into ashes in the fire. Fortunately, there were also records about the method of resurrecting a damaged physical body. When the physical body is destroyed, turn into a ghost, find a living body, and possess it. Lin Yu gasped. This meant that if his physical body was damaged, he could only use the soul resurrection technique to become a ghost and find someone else's physical body to possess. One had to know that in human consciousness, ghosts were the embodiment of evil. Moreover, if he possessed someone else's body, wouldn't it be equivalent to robbing someone of their life? While he was hesitating, Lin Yu's soul had already become fainter and fainter, leaving only an illusion. The voice in his ears also became clearer. Lin Yu gritted his teeth and looked at the corpses being pushed into the cremation hall. Suddenly, an idea came to him. If the dead couldn't do it, then the living dead should be able to do it, right? A few minutes later, Lin Yu arrived at Qinghai City's largest care center for vegetative patients. Many vegetative patients had no consciousness and would never wake up for the rest of their lives. They were only alive with their bodies. Lin Yu believed that choosing such a person to possess would not be considered as killing. At first, Lin Yu went to each ward to find a suitable body. However, he found that his consciousness was becoming fainter and fainter. Soon, it would disappear completely. The call from hell was also becoming more and more urgent. Lin Yu had no time to think. He targeted a male vegetative patient in his 20s and chanted the soul resurrection technique. Suddenly, he turned into a wisp of white smoke and darted into the body without a care for his own safety. You can't escape. At the same time, the call in his ears suddenly turned into a shrill scream. Then, Lin Yu lost all consciousness. When Lin Yu woke up again, he only felt a strong light piercing his eyes. It took him a while to adjust to it. He looked down and saw that he was lying in a ward. Success! Lin Yu was so excited that he almost shouted. He suddenly sat up and looked at his new body. He could not wait to tear off the syringe in his hand and jump off the bed. However, as soon as his feet touched the ground, his body staggered and fell to the ground. Perhaps because he had been lying down for a long time, the young man's muscles were slightly atrophied. Lin Yu staggered up and raised his head to look at the calendar on the wall. He found that it was already the next day. He touched the bed and the wall, feeling the cold temperature on his hands. He felt like he was dreaming. He had just died yesterday. He did not expect to be resurrected today. After moving a little and adapting to his new body, he rushed out of the hospital. There was only one thing on his mind now, and that was to see his mother. At this time, the bun shop was full of people. More than 10 hooligans were clamoring for Lin Yu's mother to return the money. In order to perform the surgery for Lin Yu's mother was forced to borrow more than 100,000 yuan from the loan sharks. Knowing that Lin Yu was dead, the hooligans could not wait to collect the debt. Don't worry, I will sell the shop in a few days. I will return the money to you when I get it. Please leave first. Lin Yu's mother pleaded with them with red and swollen eyes. She hoped that they could send them away as soon as possible. Her son had just passed away, and she did not want him to leave in peace. F***CK. How much money is your broken shop worth? Your son is dead. If you run away after we leave, who are we going to ask for money from? The yellow-haired leader of the hooligans cursed. Don't worry, I will definitely not run away. I will return the money to you as soon as I gather enough money. No, we have to get the money today, no matter what. The yellow-haired leader was unwilling to let go. But I really don't have money now. You also know that I've spent all my money to treat my son's illness. Lin Yu's mother felt like her heart was being cut by a knife. There was a hint of pleading in her hoarse voice. It's fine if you don't have money. How about this? You transfer the ownership of your broken house to us. Treat it as paying off the debt. The yellow-haired leader rolled his eyes and revealed his true intention. Lin Yu's mother was slightly stunned. The house was left behind by Lin Yu's maternal grandfather. Although it was a little old, the location was very good. According to the current housing prices in Qinghai, it could be sold for at least 2 or 3 million yuan. They were simply robbing her. New 81 update fastest computer. / but now that her son was dead, her home was gone. What was the point of keeping the house? She could pass away in peace after paying off the debt. Thinking of this, Lin Yu's mother nodded in despair. Just as she was about to agree, an angry shout suddenly came from outside the door. No, our house is worth at least a few million yuan. You are robbing us. Immediately after, Lin Yu rode his new body and rushed in hastily. F***CKU. Where did this bastard come from? It's none of your business. The yellow-haired leader was furious. He looked at Lin Yu's hospital gown and thought that he was a lunatic. He rushed over and raised his hand to slap Lin Yu. Lin Yu dodged subconsciously. He stretched out his hand and pushed. The yellow-haired leader was instantly sent flying 5 or 6 meters away. He drew an arc in the air and fell on the table inside with a bang. "Kill him for me." The yellow-haired leader held his chest and screamed twice. Then he gave the order, and the other hooligans immediately rushed over. They surrounded Lin Yu and started punching and kicking him. Lin Yu quickly raised his hand to fight back. Then there was a series of wails in the bun shop. The hooligans screamed continuously. More than a dozen of them attacked together, but they didn't even touch the corner of Lin Yu's clothes. Lin Yu's punches and kicks hit them like they were hit by a car. Just one punch, and they couldn't get up from the pain. Lin Yu himself was extremely shocked. It was said that the possessed body was extremely powerful. He didn't expect it to be true. Moreover, these people's movements were very slow in his eyes. It was easy to dodge. "Call the police. Call the police." The yellow-haired leader was frightened by the scene in front of him. He had seen people who could fight, but he had never seen someone who could fight like this. It was simply inhuman. Hearing that they were going to call the police, Lin Yu's mother rushed over and grabbed Lin Yu's hand. She said anxiously, "Young man, they're going to call the police. You should leave quickly. I will take care of this." "Mom, what are you saying? How can I leave you behind?" Lin Yu was so happy that he was about to cry. It was great that he could still see his mother alive. Hearing his mother's words, his mother was slightly stunned and looked at him blankly. Looking at his mother's eyes, Lin Yu instantly came to a realization. He was alive, but in a different body. His mother didn't know him at all. "I'm sorry, Annie. Seeing you reminded me of my mother, so I couldn't help but blurt it out. Please don't mind me." Lin Yu was afraid that revealing his true identity would frighten his mother, so he quickly made up a lie. "It's okay, young man. You should leave quickly. We can't involve you in our family's matters," Lin Yu's mother said as she pushed him out. Lin Yu didn't answer. He picked up the chopsticks on the table and threw them. The chopsticks flew towards the yellow-haired leader. With a bang, the chopsticks nailed the yellow-haired leader's phone, which had just dialed 110, to the wall. The yellow-haired leader was so scared that his face turned pale. The chopsticks on the wall were only a centimeter away from his ear. If there was a slight deviation, it would be his head that was nailed to the wall. "Help! Murder! Help!" The yellow-haired leader was so scared that he immediately screamed. There was an indescribable grievance in his voice. They obviously owed him money first. "Stop shouting. I will pay the money for Annie Chin," Lin Yu said coldly. Since he was resurrected, these debts should be paid by him. "Young man, how can you do this? This is the first time we have met. How can I let you pay for me?" Lin Yu's mother looked at Lin Yu with some confusion. She didn't know why, but this young man gave her a familiar feeling. She wasn't surprised that Lin Yu knew her surname. Many netizens knew that her son bravely sacrificed his life for a just cause. Her name and contact information were also exposed. Many kind-hearted people wanted to send her son off, but she declined all of them. "Okay, that's what you said. Then give us the money." The yellow-haired leader didn't care why Lin Yu was paying for others. As long as he could get the money, his mission would be considered completed. "Give me 3 days," Lin Yu said. The yellow-haired leader was a little speechless. He said it so arrogantly. He thought he could immediately take out the money. "What? You don't believe me?" Seeing that the yellow-haired leader didn't speak, Lin Yu frowned, and his tone was a little cold. I believe you. But big brother, can you tell me your name?" Looking at Lin Yu's cold eyes, the yellow-haired leader couldn't help but shiver. "Name? Yeah, I left in a hurry this morning. I didn't even have time to see this person's name. Don't worry, I will definitely do what I promised you. How about this? 3 days later, you just need to come here. I will pay you back with interest." The reason why Lin Yu was so confident was all because of his body. He thought that since this young man could live in the daycare center, no matter how ordinary his family was, he should at least be able to take out 100 or 200,000 yuan. He wanted to use it first and return it when he made money. After seeing Lin Yu's skills, the yellow-haired leader didn't dare to say anything. Just as he was about to nod and agree, his eyes suddenly looked outside the store, as if he was attracted by something. Lin Yu also looked outside curiously. He saw a red BMW 5 at the door. The door opened, and a pair of fair and slender legs stepped out. Then, a tall beauty in a white bohemian dress got out of the car. /book/18/18289 / the beauty in the long dress brushed her long black hair and took off her sunglasses. Her fair skin and delicate face were simply amazing. The yellow-haired leader and his subordinates were all stunned. Lin Yu couldn't help but be attracted. This beauty's appearance and temperament were indeed superb. The beauty in the long dress looked up at the bun shop, frowned slightly, and then walked in quickly. /book/18/18289 / beauty. Do you want to buy buns? What kind of filling do you want? Lin Yu couldn't help but blurt out. In the past, he always helped his mother sell buns, and it had become a conditioned reflex. What did you call me? The beauty in the long dress glanced at him coldly and said in a displeased tone, Beauty? Lin Yu felt that there was nothing wrong with his address, but he couldn't help but feel a little confused. It was the first time that someone was unwilling to call him Beauty. The beauty in the long dress looked at him and said coldly, Well, Hejiarong, you have been in a coma for 2 months, and you don't even recognize your own wife. /book/18/18289 / book/18/18289 / Chapter 22-23. Thank you for your kindness, Your Highness. Dan Yuru smiled sweetly. But since I'm the leader, if I can't even guarantee my own safety, won't I be laughed at by my subordinates? Looks like I've been worrying too much. Wang Baobao quickly recovered and laughed. The two of them changed the topic. At that moment, in the Tufan guest house, Zhongzhan was pacing back and forth in his room. He seemed very anxious. When he saw Jumaji come in, he immediately asked, Imperial Advisor, what should I do when I face that Duan brat tomorrow? I heard that you've dealt with him many times. You should know the weakness of his martial arts. Today, he had witnessed Duan Yu use the six-pulse divine sword to defeat the Five Tigers sect experts. He did not want to repeat the same mistake tomorrow. Jumaji muttered, That brat's six-pulse divine sword is powerful, but he doesn't have a foundation in martial arts. It'll be difficult for him to unleash his true abilities. We could take advantage of the situation to fight him in close combat. It won't be difficult to subdue him. Zhongzhan frowned and said, But his movement is very strange. I think it's called wave-like subtle steps. I might not be able to get close to him. Jumaji was also in a difficult position. If it was him, it would not be difficult to subdue Duan Yu. But if it was Zhongzhan, he might not be able to quickly subdue him. Once the distance was drawn and Zhongzhan used the six-pulse divine sword, he would not be able to fight back. I have an idea, Zhongzhan said casually. Imperial Advisor, kill Duan Yu tonight, and everything will be fine. Jumaji's eyes lit up. He could not kill Duan Yu. Duan Yu was the crown prince of Dali. Even his sworn brother Xiaofeng was not someone to be trifled with. In a martial arts circle, no one would go to the extreme unless it was absolutely necessary. But he could capture him first and drag it out until tomorrow's competition. He had always wanted to ask him about the six-pulse divine sword. This was a good opportunity. Don't worry, Prince. Leave it to me. Jumaji ran out excitedly. By this time, there were not a few people who had the same idea as Zhongzhan. The Ming dynasty's Yang Shao, dressed in night clothes, quietly sneaked into the beggar clan's encampment. Although Yin Yuang's martial arts skill was not bad, he was still several notches below by Mei Yingwang. Judging from the martial arts skill displayed by the beggar clan's clan leader Zhuang Juxian, Yin Yuang most likely would not be able to defeat him. After thinking about it, Yang Shao decided to test Zhuang Juxian first. It would be best if he could injure him. Even if he couldn't, it would be more beneficial for him to figure out his martial art style tomorrow. As for the danger, Yang Shao had always been proud and arrogant. As the #1 swordsman under the cult leader of the Ming dynasty, with the divine flicking finger and the Qian Kung, he believed that it was more than enough to protect himself. Cult leader, where are you? He couldn't help but feel resentful. If Zhang Wuji had come personally, he wouldn't have needed to act so sneakily. Among the contestants in this competition, who could compete with the cult leader? The sect leader has been getting weirder and weirder these past few years. Yang Shao couldn't help but frown when he thought of some of the abnormalities in his daily life. Who? While he was distracted, he was discovered by Zhuang Juxian, who was in the room. A black shadow suddenly broke through the window and pounced out. Although Yang Xiao was shocked, he didn't panic. In the blink of an eye, he exchanged a few palms with him. The shadows separated. Yang Xiao raised his hand and looked at the black aura in his palm. He couldn't help but shiver. What kind of martial arts is this? Although he knew from what he saw during the day that his opponent's palm force was poisonous, with his inner energy, normal poisons wouldn't be able to enter his body. He didn't expect his opponent's cold poison to be so overbearing. It was like a hot knife cutting through butter, invading his body in an instant. Zhuang Juxian laughed sinisterly. A martial art that kills. As soon as he finished speaking, he pounced forward. Yang Xiao focused his attention and didn't fight head-on anymore. Instead, he used the Qian Kuan de Nuo Yi to fight with him, making it so that Zhuang Juxian couldn't do anything to him. After 10 moves, Yang Xiao understood. His opponent's fist and leg skills could be said to be extremely shallow, far inferior to his own. However, his inner energy was too strong. At the same time, he had a body full of strange cold poison, so he could use brute force to break through technique. Feeling the bone-piercing cold, Yang Xiao's hands and feet became more and more stiff. He knew that if he didn't quickly force the cold poison out, his meridians would probably suffer irreversible damage. With a feint, he jumped over the wall. Zhuang Juxian couldn't let him go and immediately chased after him. At this moment, a slim figure rushed out from the dark and blocked his way. The two of them exchanged a few moves. Zhuang Juxian's attacks were all defused by his opponent's exquisite techniques. Divine Realm at this time. The Beggar Clan people heard the news and rushed out. The beautiful figure used a feint to shake off Zhuang Juxian's center of gravity. Then, she took the opportunity to jump a few times and disappeared into the night with Yang Xiao. It's a woman? Zhuang Juxian knew that his opponent's Qinggong was far better than his, so he didn't chase after her. Instead, he stayed where he was and muttered to himself, "But no one can compare to Azi. Azi, where are you? Do you know how powerful I am now? Thank you for saving me." "Oh, you're the woman in yellow." Yang Xiao recognized her. At the lion-slaying contest, she amazed everyone, so it was difficult for people not to remember her. The woman in yellow did not answer. Suddenly, a stick appeared in her hand and stabbed at him. Yang Xiao didn't expect that she would suddenly attack him. But after all, she had been famous in Jianghu for so many years, so he reacted quickly and quickly fought back several moves. "Oh, the spear of the Yang family?" Yang Xiao exclaimed. The woman in yellow stopped attacking and said, "You're indeed a descendant of the Yang mansion of Skywave. So are you?" Yang Xiao asked curiously. "I was fostered in the Skywave mansion when I was a child. I'm the adopted daughter of a Yang family." The woman in yellow briefly introduced herself and then asked, "Which branch are you from?" Yang Xiao smiled bitterly and said, "My father, Yang Ji, was nicknamed Green Face Beast in Jianghu. No wonder you're in the Ming Dynasty." The woman in yellow suddenly understood. Yang Ji, the Green Face Beast, had become a bandit and joined Songjiang. Later, because the imperial court abandoned the bridge after crossing the river, the remnants of the two forces fled to Dongting Lake and continued to rebuild the Ming Dynasty. Unfortunately, they were destroyed by Yu Fei and had to go to the Bright Peak in the western region. It was not easy for them to regain their power. "Why didn't you abandon the dark side for the light after so many years? You should know that the Yang family is short of manpower now." The woman in yellow continued to ask, "Abandon the dark side for the light?" Yang Xiao sneered and said, "What is dark and what is light? We helped the imperial court to fight against Feng La. What do we get? Let's not talk about me. Just look at the other members of the Yang family. They were loyal to the country, but how many of them got a good ending? Yang Miaojin and her sister in the Redcoat Army are also from the Skywave Mansion, right? What good ending did they get?" Ahem. He couldn't help coughing when he said this. "You're suffering from the cold poison now. Let's not talk about this. I'll help you get rid of the poison first." Yang Miaojin could feel the chill from his body just by standing nearby. "No need. I don't need to trouble others with such a small matter." I'll repay you for saving my life in the future. I'll take my leave first. Yang Xiao was proud and arrogant. Moreover, he didn't want to owe her any favors just now. The woman in yellow hesitated. She didn't want to push him too hard, so she followed him quietly. She only left when she saw him return to the wooden table Luan department. At this time, Song Qing-shu was walking into the residence of the dual cultivator residence. The dual cultivator princess had helped him a lot during the day, so he should thank her personally and publicly. When he arrived at Gu Zixian's courtyard, he saw Du Gumming trying to explain to her from afar. Xian, listen to me. What happened today was just an accident. I'm not like this usually. Maybe I'm not used to the climate here. Xian, I know it was embarrassing today, but I don't know why. Song Qing-shu sighed secretly. It was really lowly to fall in love with someone who didn't love him. Gu Zixian's appearance reminded him of the relationship between Song Qing-shu and Zhou Zhiruo in the original novel. For a moment, he felt like they were in the same boat. Young master, there are plenty of fish in the sea. Why waste your energy on someone who doesn't like you? Song Qing-shu advised sincerely. Chapter 22-24. Stop. A beautiful figure flew out from the house and used her sword to block Du Gumming's attack. Xian, why are you protecting him? Du Gumming thought about how she ignored him after he said so much outside the door, but she came out the moment this gigolo came. He couldn't help but feel his heart bleeding. Du Gumming, are you done messing around? Why are you blaming someone else when you're in trouble? Gu Zixian looked at him coldly. Du Gumming only felt aggrieved. It would be fine if this kid had real skills, but he clearly doesn't know anything. He only relied on luck and shamelessness to pass the elimination round. How can I be convinced by someone like this? Song Qing-shu shook his finger. I have to correct you here. Luck is actually a very powerful ability. Puffed. Du Gumming wanted to spit a cup of tea at his face. Song Qing-shu shrugged his shoulders. The opponent was too weak and couldn't come into contact with something as illusory as luck. He's much stronger than you. He always wanted to give in, but you don't know what's good for you. Gu Zixian subconsciously defended herself. He's stronger than me? Du Gumming was so angry that he laughed. Come. Let him spar with me. I'll let him use only one hand. Gu Zixian then remembered that Song Qing-shu didn't want to expose his identity. She hurriedly said, You've already sparred. I didn't expect you to be a sore loser. Du Gumming wanted to cry when he thought about how he lost in the day. The more he tried to explain, the worse it would get. Seeing that the opponent was protecting the gigolo, he only felt his blood boil. He roared and left with a livid face. If he stayed any longer, he would probably die from anger. Looking at his receding figure, Song Qing-shu couldn't help but say, Aren't you being too cruel to him? Gu Zixian couldn't help but complain. Benefactor, you don't know. If I don't do this, I won't be able to get rid of his thoughts. I've been pestered to death by him all these years. I can't give him any hope. Song Qing-shu nodded, understanding her difficulties. Gu Zixian held his arm affectionately. Let's not talk about him. Why did you come here this time? Feeling her warm and soft body, Song Qing-shu couldn't help but sigh at how nice it was to be a young girl. I've specially come here to thank you. You've helped me a lot in today's competition. Gu Zixian was a bit embarrassed. Actually, with your martial arts, it would be easy for you to win. It's fine as long as you don't mind me meddling. Song Qing-shu replied, Why would I be meddlesome? Du Gumming's martial arts aren't bad. In front of so many experts, it would be very troublesome for me to defeat him without leaving any traces. Luckily, I have you. It's good that I can help you. Gu Zixian's face was full of smiles. Where was the usual coldness? What man could withstand a young girl looking at him with deep love in her eyes? Smelling her unique fragrance and feeling the softness and elasticity of the young girl's body, Song Qing-shu suddenly felt a warmth in his heart. He also felt that it was a bit strange. Logically speaking, with his current experience, his mental fortitude was quite good. However, when he touched this woman's skin, it was as if he was struck by lightning. Could it be that there was a fatal attraction between the two of them? Even with Song Qing-shu's cultivation, his heart was slightly shaken, not to mention Gu Zixian, whose cultivation was even lower. At this moment, her skin was incomparably hot. Her pair of beautiful eyes were also covered with a layer of haziness, as if water was about to drip out at any moment. "Is there anyone in your room?" Song Qingshu asked in a low voice. "I'll go and get rid of them first." The young girl's voice carried a trace of shyness, but at the same time, there was a hidden trace of anticipation. Lifting the hem of her skirt, she jogged into her courtyard. Mangxing after a while, Song Qingshu saw that it was about time, so he followed her in. As soon as he entered the door, a hot and delicate body fell into his arms. The sweet smell and soft body were enough to make any man lose himself in this land of gentleness. After an unknown amount of time, the dual cultivator's wife heard the news and rushed over. When she walked out of the courtyard, she suddenly frowned. She ordered her servants to stand guard outside and entered the courtyard alone. When she found out that Song Qingshu was here and that her daughter had a conflict with Dugaming, she was worried that her daughter would be too direct and cause irreversible consequences. Thus, she rushed over to smooth things over. However, as soon as she arrived, she realized that something was wrong. Her daughter was the dual cultivator's princess and usually had many servants to serve her. However, at this moment, there was not a single person in the courtyard. Furthermore, her cultivation wasn't weak. She could faintly hear some sounds coming from inside the room. As someone who had been through this, how could she not know what these sounds were? However, it wasn't too late. Furthermore, her daughter had always been cold and aloof, so she thought that she had misheard. It wasn't until she walked out of the door that she heard the sounds inside clearly that her face instantly turned red. This damn girl, why doesn't she care about anything? Regarding the matter between her daughter and Song Qingshu, she was aware and tacitly approved of it. After all, he was such a powerful man, so there was nothing wrong with her daughter befriending him. However, tacitly approving it was one thing. Knowing that her obedient and aloof daughter was now being so flirtatious and passionate about that man, as a mother, she still felt weird. I have to find a chance to talk to them. No matter what, we have to be mindful of the consequences. The dual cultivator's wife gritted her teeth. After all, her daughter was still a virgin. The descendants of the dual cultivator's residents had always placed great importance on chastity. If others were to find out, it would easily cause a huge uproar. The dual cultivator's wife wanted to turn around and leave, but she was worried that someone would break into this place and spread some rumors. So, she had to endure her shyness and wait at the door. After a long time, the dual cultivator's wife's legs became a little weak. She couldn't help but secretly spit. These two people are really mischievous. The only thing worth rejoicing is that the son-in-law's physical strength is quite good. At this moment, a maidservant hurried over and reported, "Madam, the Empress of Xixia country is here." The Empress of Xixia country? What does she want? The dual cultivator's wife was stunned. They didn't have any contact, so the Empress wouldn't come here for no reason. It seems that she wants to see young Master Jia of the Southern Song dynasty, the maidservant replied. The dual cultivator's wife's expression suddenly became very interesting. She hurriedly said to the maidservant, "You go to receive the Empress first. I will inform young Master Jia." When she came to her daughter's door, she still heard all kinds of shameful sounds coming from inside. She had a headache. However, this was the territory of Xixia country. The Empress of Xixia country had come here. If she kept refusing to see young Master Jia, she would really be doomed. The dual cultivator's wife hesitated for a moment. Then, she cleared her throat and knocked on the door. "Sienna, the Empress of Xixia country is here. She said that she wants to see young Master Jia. Have you seen him?" She was very considerate and pretended that she didn't know what was going on inside, so that they wouldn't feel embarrassed later. Gu Zixin exclaimed. Apparently, she was so embarrassed that she wanted to find a hole to hide in after learning that her mother was outside. Song Qingshu had long known that she was outside. He didn't mind it. On the contrary, he felt a different kind of excitement. However, he remembered that she seemed to have eavesdropped outside last time. For a moment, he wondered if this madam had such a hobby. If Gu Ningqing knew that he suspected her like this, she might not be able to help but fall out with him on the spot. Song Qing put on his clothes and came out. He also pretended that nothing had happened. "Greetings, madam." Gu Ningqing secretly bit her lips. She thought that this person was really shameless. However, both of them tacitly didn't expose this matter. "Benefactor, the Empress is looking for you." "Thank you, madam." After saying goodbye to her, Song Qing left the courtyard. On the way back, he was wondering if his behavior was suspicious of him running away after eating his fill. Chapter 22-25. The Crown Prince of Dali. Song Qing was stunned for a long time. "Duan, seeing Mu Wanqing nod, Song Qing couldn't help but laugh. "You used to be friends, and you're even brother and sister. Why are you so distant?" Mu Wanqing blushed. "I'm afraid that you won't be happy." "I'm not that petty." Song Qing naturally held her waist. "Let's talk on the way. How did he disappear?" Gu Ningqing happened to come out and saw this scene. Her first reaction was, the Empress of Xixia is so beautiful. She was proud of her beauty, and her daughter was also very beautiful since childhood. But the Empress of Xixia was not less beautiful than them. The relationship between the benefactor and the Empress of Xixia seems to be unusual. Thinking of their intimate behavior, she couldn't help but feel a little surprised. But then she thought that with his martial arts, he was already standing at the top of the world. It was normal for him to have a confidant with the Empress. Originally, she wanted to ask her daughter if the other party had expressed his feelings or given her a status. After all, as a mother, she always felt a little uncomfortable when she saw her daughter being played for free. But seeing the scene, she gave up the idea. Even the dignified Empress of a country was his secret lover. How could others compete with him? Of course, she didn't worry too much. With that person's status and martial arts, her daughter wouldn't suffer a loss if she maintained a good relationship with him. Moreover, her daughter liked him. Of course, Song Qing didn't know that Gu Ningqing's thoughts were running around behind him. He was now listening to Mu Wanqing's description of Duan Yu's disappearance. It seems that in the evening, Duan Yu received a letter. After reading it, he smiled happily and ran away to avoid them. Then he disappeared. Zhu Danshan, one of the 4 great protectors of Dali, came to me for help. I sent people from Class 1 Hall, but they couldn't find his whereabouts, so I came to ask you. Song Qing knew that she couldn't just sit by and watch Duan Yu get into trouble, so he tried to help. What about that letter? No one saw that letter. Mu Wanqing shook her head. Song Qing fell in a deep thought. The only person who can make Duan Yu so happy with a letter is probably Miss Wang. But she's still at MT beating drum. Wait, could it be that Li Qiushui's bad habit of liking pretty boys acted up again and she ran over to seduce Duan Yu? She's a goddess in Duan Yu's heart, and her status is even higher than Wang Yuyan's. If I really want to seduce her, I'll be able to do it with just a finger. Hearing his speculation, Mu Wanqing replied, Qinglu has also asked Li Qiushui. She has no interest in this young boy. Moreover, Qinglu has always been with her, so it's impossible for her to split herself to look for Duan Yu. If it's not Li Qiushui, then who is it? Song Qingshu's mind quickly went through all the forces in Xingqing Manor who had a grudge against Duan Yu. Suddenly, he thought of someone. Come with me. On the way, Song Qingshu explained, Duan Yu is going to fight against Tubo's Prince Zongzan tomorrow. Zongzan probably knew that he was no match for Duan Yu after witnessing his 6-pulse divine sword and wave-like subtle steps. That's why he decided to play dirty in advance. I don't know if he's in danger right now. A trace of worry flashed across Mu Wanqing's brows. You know that he's the only son of that cheap father of mine. If something happens to him in my territory, I really don't know what to do. Song Qingshu patted her little hand. Don't worry, Duan Yu should be fine. Zongzan is one thing, but Zhou Maji is an old acquaintance of mine. I know his personality. He won't go to such extremes. At most, he won't let Duan Yu participate in tomorrow's competition. That's good. Mu Wanqing let out a long sigh of relief. It's good that Duan Yu doesn't participate in the competition. Qinglu won't marry him anyway. As they chatted, the two of them arrived at the Tubo's guest house. However, Zhou Maji and Prince Zongzan were not there. Princess Jincheng received them. They're not in the guest house right now. I'll send someone to look for them, Princess Jincheng said apologetically. At the same time, she was curious. She didn't expect the Empress of Xixia to be so beautiful and younger than her. At the same time, she didn't understand why the Empress would come to look for the Nation Master and Zhongzhan. What was even more surprising was that Jia Baoyu came with the Empress. Princess, there's no need to trouble yourself. I just heard that the Nation Master and the others wanted to invite the Crown Prince of Dali as a guest, so I specially came to see. Mu Wanqing was also a little surprised by the Tubo princess's dignified and beautiful appearance. She had seen many Tubo women, and they were usually darker. However, the one opposite her had skin whiter than snow, and she had the demeanor of a lady from a noble family. No wonder the two of them acted a little strange earlier. Princess Jincheng was also a smart person. She immediately understood the other party's hidden meaning and also understood why the other party had come in person. Your Highness, please rest assured. I will definitely tell the Nation Master and the others to send the Crown Prince of Dali back after the guest. Mu Wanqing also sighed in relief. Thank you, Princess. The two chatted casually for a while before Mu Wanqing got up to leave. Princess Jincheng sent them to the door and suddenly said, Your Highness, can I have a few words with Baoyu? Mu Wanqing was a little stunned, but she still nodded and went outside and advanced to wait. Song Qingshu looked at the dignified and delicate woman in front of him and asked curiously, Princess, what do you want to ask me? Princess Jincheng blinked her eyes and carefully looked at him for a while. Baoyu, why do you have such a good relationship with the Empress of Xixia? Song Qingshu smiled embarrassedly and said, Maybe my charm is too great? These women don't even know to avoid me when they come to look for me. I have to have a good talk with them. Otherwise, in the eyes of people with ulterior motives, it's easy to have a problem with my identity. Princess Jincheng covered her mouth and chuckled. I have heard of your deeds before. I heard that you are very popular among the girls in Lin City. Today, I have really seen it for myself. After laughing for a while, she then said, By the way, when you go back, tell Ing Luo to come and sit with me when she is free. I am very lonely here alone, and I really want to chat with my old friends. Towards the end, her tone was full of loneliness, and the weakness in her eyes made people feel sorry for her. Song Qingshu couldn't help but say, Princess, do you want me to come and sit with you? I can also come and chat with you to relieve your boredom. Princess Jincheng's little face blushed. She couldn't help but spit. You are so young, but so mischievous. You even dare to tease me. I just don't want to see you so lonely. Song Qingshu explained, If you think it's inconvenient, then forget it. Princess Jincheng's body trembled. She calmed down and then said softly, It doesn't matter. You are welcome to come and sit with me in the future. If it was another man who said that, she would definitely refuse. However, in her heart, Jia Baoyu was only a junior, so she didn't have that many concerns. Chapter 22-26. Coming out of the Tubo Hotel, Mu Wanqing couldn't help but ask, Why is Princess Jincheng looking for you? She just asked me why I'm so familiar with you. Song Qingshu replied. Mu Wanqing's face was full of doubt. Is that really it? What else? Song Qingshu felt a little guilty. What if Princess Jincheng takes a fancy to you? Mu Wanqing snorted. Song Qingshu was sweating like a waterfall. How is that possible? She is dignified and virtuous, quiet and polite. How could she have those messy thoughts? But you can't stand these messy thoughts. Mu Wanqing looked back at him, and the corners of her mouth were slightly raised. I know you like this style the most. Song Qingshu put his arm around her shoulder. Of course I like people like you the most. Cold on the outside, but warm on the inside. You are cold to others, but gentle and considerate to me. Oh, no wonder you like the dual cultivation princess so much. She happens to have this kind of personality. Mu Wanqing couldn't help but curl her lips. Song Qingshu suddenly smiled awkwardly. He was just found out by the other party from the dual cultivation house. No matter how thick-skinned he was, he didn't know how to explain. Okay, I still have to appease Zhu Danshan's group. I won't be with you for now. Mu Wanqing looked very unhappy. By the way, You should also go back to the Southern Song Hotel to have a look. A spy reported that something happened there. After that, she asked her men to leave. Song Qing-shu originally wanted to say something to her, but when he heard the last sentence, he couldn't help but stop. What happened in the Southern Song Hotel? He hurried back to the Southern Song Hotel and found that the door was bustling with a lot of people. After careful observation, he found that there were believers of the Ming dynasty and warriors of the Wooden Table Luan tribe. What the hell is going on? Song Qing-shu pulled the person next to him and asked. Unfortunately, the other party's understanding was limited. At this time, Shui Baochai came out to appease the people of the Ming dynasty and the Wooden Table Luan tribe at the door. She happened to see him and called him to the side. "Where have you been? Princess Jinsheng wants to talk to me." It was not convenient to talk about the other places. After thinking about it, he felt that the excuse of Princess Jinsheng was the best. After all, she came from the Song dynasty. In a sense, she was one of them. As expected, Shui Baochai's expression softened a lot after hearing about the princess of Jinsheng. However, she was still a little puzzled. "Why is she looking for you?" Song Qing-shu replied. "It's just that she's too lonely, so she came to talk to me. At the same time, she asked me to pass a message to you and Miss Yang to visit her when you're free. The princess is married to Tubo alone and has no relatives. It's really pitiful. We should visit her more often if we have the chance." Shui Baochai sighed. "By the way, didn't I set a curfew before? How did you get out?" Song Qing-shu suddenly remembered that because of the successive incidents in Korea and Mongolia, Shui Baochai did not allow the members of the diplomatic mission to go out at night. There were guards patrolling the area. Logically speaking, he should not be able to go out. Just when he didn't know how to explain, Shui Baochai said, "Let's go in first." Seeing her serious expression, Song Qing-shu was stunned. Did something happen? Shui Baochai hesitated for a moment. Then, she lowered her voice and said, "Sister Yang is injured." "Injured? Who injured her?" Song Qing-shu was shocked. With her martial arts skills, the number of people in Xingqing Prefecture who could injure her could be counted on one hand. Jiuzhou Chinese, actually, she's not really injured. She's almost recovered after resting for a while. On the other hand, Miss Hua's injuries are a little more serious. Shui Baochai replied. "Miss Hua?" Song Qing-shu was confused. Why was there another Miss Hua? Shui Baochai quickly explained. It seems that Yang Shao of the Ming dynasty was poisoned by a very serious cold poison. The people of the Ming dynasty and the Wooden Table Luan tribe tried to force the poison out of his body. Unfortunately, their internal energy was insufficient and the cold poison invaded his body. I don't know why, but they took the initiative to ask Sister Yang for help. Sister Yang didn't refuse. Unfortunately, her internal energy is on the feminine side. The cold poison in Yang Zhao's body was too strong. What kind of cold poison is so strong? Song Qing-shu was very surprised. It's said that it's the poison of the Beggar clan's new clan leader, Zhuang Juxian. Shui Baochai frowned. Song Qing-shu was even more confused. With Yang Zhao's internal energy, even if he was not Zhuang Juxian's match, he shouldn't have been injured so badly. Moreover, even if the yellow-clothed girl's internal energy was weak, she shouldn't have been unable to force the poison out. Song Qing-shu came to the hall and found that Yang Shao and the others were placed in the center. Yin Yuang stood up from behind Song Qing-shu, trembling all over. His teeth were chattering. "I can't do it. I can't do it. Why is this cold poison so strong?" The yellow-clothed girl said, "It's my fault. If I hadn't talked to him at the beginning, he wouldn't have been able to use his internal energy to heal himself. Otherwise, the cold poison wouldn't have penetrated his internal organs." It turned out that not long after Yang Shao returned to the hostel to heal himself, he found that something was wrong. Unfortunately, his whole body was frozen. Fortunately, Hua Qingtong, who came to discuss with him, found something wrong and hurriedly healed him. Unfortunately, her internal energy was insufficient and she hurt herself instead. Chen Jialuo, Yin Yuang, and the others heard the news and rushed over. Yang Shao woke up once and said that only the yellow-clothed girl from the Southern Song dynasty could save them. Song Qingshu observed from a distance and found that although Yang Zhao's whole body was cold, his breathing was much steadier. "You should be fine." Sure enough, Yang Zhao slowly opened his eyes and said weakly, "If Miss hadn't lent a helping hand, I'm afraid Yang's life would have ended here today." The yellow-clothed girl's face was still solemn. Yang's was sure, she said, "Your internal energy is profound. After we used our internal energy to help you, you're fine." "But Miss Washi," Yang Zhao's face was full of guilt. "If because of Yang, Madame Jiaozhu has any mishap, Yang would be ashamed to live in this world," he said. Yin Yuang hastily said, Yang's was sure, this has nothing to do with you. You can only blame that Zhuang Juxian's martial art for being too vicious. The beggar clan's martial art has always been upright and upright. How could this Bangzhu's palm have such a terrible cold poison? Today Yang Xiao risked his life for his sake. Naturally, he wanted to return the favor. By chance, he practiced Shaolin's Yi Jing Jing. At the same time, he refined Kunlun's ice silkworm and mastered a kind of cold internal energy that has never been seen before. At this moment, someone's voice was heard from the side. Everybody turned around and saw that the speaker was Jia Baoyu. Lu Shidao couldn't help laughing. "Oh, since when did our master Jia also know martial art?" Song Qingshu shrugged his shoulders. "I haven't eaten pork, but I've seen a pig run." Shui Baochai couldn't help pulling his sleeve. "Baoyu, don't talk nonsense." The yellow-clothed girl's eyes lit up. "What Baoyu said makes sense. This symptom is very similar to the legendary ice silkworm." Yang Xiao also nodded. "It is indeed very similar to the ice silkworm." The brightness peak was also located on Mount Kunlun, so naturally he had heard the legend of the ice silkworm. "Little brother, since you know the origin of the opponent's martial art, do you have a way to save him?" Yang Xiao was in a desperate situation. If Hua Qingtong really died from the cold poison because of him, how could he face the cult leader and the tens of thousands of followers? The yellow-clothed girl and Shui Baochai frowned. "I'm afraid." Chapter 22-27. You can save her. The Liu brothers, who knew Jia Baoyu very well, laughed out loud. Even Shui Baochai pulled on his sleeve and said, "Baoyu, stop fooling around. I really can save her." Hearing the mocking laughter around him getting louder, Song Qingshu couldn't help but sigh. Life was always like this. People would believe a lie, but no one would believe the truth. Could it be that you have cultivated some kind of extreme yang inner energy? Compared to the others, Yang Xiao was obviously more concerned about Hua Qingtong's safety. After all, she was injured because of him, so he didn't want to give up any hope. Not really. Song Qingshu thought about the 9 manual inner energy he cultivated. The god illuminating scripture, on the other hand, was more on the yang side. But in the end, it was balanced with the joy zen inner energy. If he exposed his inner energy now, wouldn't his identity be exposed? TSK. Even the people of the Ming dynasty booed. It's a pity that the leader isn't here. Otherwise, with his 9 yang divine art, this cold poison won't be a problem for him. Yang Xiao couldn't help but sigh. Song Qingshu couldn't help but say, "Instead of hoping for that Zhang Wuji, who we don't know where he is, it's better to believe in me. I can really save her. If I can't save her, you could just kill me and pay with my life." "Baoyu, don't talk nonsense." Shui Baochai panicked. Even the lady in yellow thought that he was too reckless. How could he make such an oath? Is that true? Yang Xiao was the second in command of the Ming cult. Usually, when Zhang Wuji was not around for a long period of time, he was basically in charge of the cult's affairs. His ability to read people was quite good. When faced with the ridicule of the people around him, Yang Xiao had an inexplicable calmness and indifference. This made Yang Xiao believe him subconsciously. "Really?" Song Qingshu answered lightly. Shui Baochai hurriedly pulled him aside, her expression extremely anxious. "Baoyu, don't mess around. You don't know martial arts. How can you save her?" Originally, this matter had nothing to do with us, but once you got involved, things would be troublesome. Hua Qingtong was the pearl of the wooden table ethics department, and she was also the future wife of the leader of the Ming dynasty. If something happened to her, wouldn't it make the Song dynasty and them hostile? That's fine, but you even bet your own life? I can indeed save her, but it's not convenient for me to reveal the method, Song Qing-shu explained. Shui Baochai still wanted to say more, but the girl in yellow advised, let him try. I don't think he's lying. Shui Baochai couldn't help but stare blankly when she heard that. She could only suppress the doubts in her heart for now. All right, then I'll have to trouble you to save me. Yang Xiao cupped his hands. At the same time, his eyes were filled with curiosity. Even so many experts were unable to save him. How could a profligate son of a rich family save him? Song Qing-shu answered, someone bring Miss Wood my room. No one else is allowed to enter. As soon as these words came out, the people of the Wooden Table Ethics Department and the Ming Dynasty were instantly in an uproar. Hua Qingtong's brother, Hua Ai, was furious. Brat, what are you trying to do? Song Qing-shu rolled his eyes and pointed at Hua Qingtong, who was beside him. She only has half her life left. Her whole body is cold like a corpse. I can't do anything to her even if I wanted to. Hua Ai was speechless. At this moment, there was not a trace of blood on his sister's face. If she closed her eyes, she would really look like a dead person. You can't do this. Yang Xiao had just agreed, but now he strongly opposed. Miss Hua is a big girl. How could she stay with a man and a woman alone in a room? Hua Qingtong was the future wife of the cult leader. The previous two potential wives, Zhou Zhuhua and Zhao Min, had both followed Song Qing-shu, which made the whole Ming dynasty lose face. They were particularly sensitive about this. If Hua Qingtong's reputation was also damaged at this time, Yang Xiao would really become a sinner of the Ming dynasty. Wujiu literature. Why are all of your thoughts so dirty? Dirty people see everything as dirty. Song Qing-shu snorted coldly. Shui Baochai and the yellow shirt girl beside him blushed. It turned out that when they heard his request just now, this was also their first thought. After all, Jiao Baoyu was famous in Lin and for hanging around with women. Anyway, no, let's think of another way. I don't believe that no one can save her with so many masters in the city. Yang Xiao struggled to stand up and was ready to call someone to help Hua Qingtong out. Song Qing-shu laughed. Looking at the whole Xingqing prefecture, there are only a few top masters. Although King Zhao's martial arts is high, his internal energy is not his forte. Moreover, he has fought with Zhuang Jushin before, so he is also very afraid of his opponent's cold poison. I'm afraid he has no way to remove the poison. The northern underworld divine skill of Duan of Dali can suck the cold poison out of Miss Hua's body, but he is not familiar with it. So, it is easy to suck away the internal energy that Miss Hua has painstakingly cultivated for more than 10 years. The Daluan Wisdom King of Tubo is currently missing. There are many masters in Shaolin, but unfortunately, the beggar sect has always been on good terms with Shaolin, and the Ming dynasty has always been hostile to Shaolin. Will they risk offending the beggar sect to help you? The rest are the Mongolian masters. You have been fighting with the Mongolians all these years, so you can't rely on them, can you? Yang Xiao and the rest looked at each other, and for a moment, they did not say anything because the other party's analysis was reasonable. Shui Baochai and the yellow-robed girl's eyes widened. The other party spoke with confidence and composure, and all kinds of analysis were at his fingertips. Was this still the rich playboy they were familiar with? Just as they were at a loss of what to do, a faint voice rang out in the hall. Let young Master Jia try. It turned out that it was Hua Qingtong who had spoken. Hua Ai and the rest frowned, but Hua Qingtong forced a smile. There are still so many people here, I think young Master Jia will not act recklessly. Hua Ai knew that his sister was smarter than others, and since she said so, she naturally had her considerations. All right, we will stand guard outside. If he does anything wrong, just give us a shout. Okay. Hua Qingtong's face, which was pale from the cold, had a hint of pink. Song Qing-shu's face was gloomy. Hey, now you're the ones begging me to save him. Why do you still have this attitude and not save him? Hua Ai was furious and directly drew his scimitar and pressed forward. Brat, are you fooling us? Yang Xiao Yin Yuang, and the rest also stared at him with unfriendly expressions. If not for the yellow-robed girl's face, they would probably have taught him a lesson on the spot. Shui Baochai could not help but rebuke. Don't mess around at a time like this, Baoyu. Song Qingshu turned his head to the side, looking like a dead pig not afraid of boiling water. It was Hu Qingtong who spoke. Please forgive me, young Master Jia. My brothers are just worried about me. If I have offended you in any way, I will first apologize to young Master. Only then did Song Qingshu's expression soften. This lady's words are still pleasant to hear. All right, it would be a waste for such a beautiful girl to die. I will reluctantly save her. Unlike the others who were angry, Hu Qingtong blinked her eyes and sized up the rich playboy in front of her curiously. She, who had been on the battlefield, was keener than others to notice that this person was different from others. Hu Qingtong was then helped into the house, and as she watched the other party chase everyone out, she could not help but ask curiously, what is the treatment going to be? Chapter 22-28. What did you say? Hu Qingtong was furious. If not for the fact that her body was frozen, she would have drawn her sword and killed him. Song Qingshu pointed to the wooden tub beside him. I've asked someone to prepare a bathtub and cold water. How are you going to get in without taking off your clothes? He could not help but think of a classic question. Why did the women in martial arts movies have to take off their clothes to heal, but not men? Although it could be explained by the fact that women tended to have thicker subcutaneous fat, everyone knew the basic reason. Who would want to see a stinky man take off his clothes when healing a woman, especially a beautiful woman? Even if she did not need to take off her clothes, she would have to create the conditions to do so. Song Qingshu was a layman. Moreover, he was engaged to Zhang Wuji. He would be letting himself down if he did not collect some interest. Hu Qingtong frowned. She was not an ordinary woman and had considered everything. She was suffering from the cold poison, and soaking in the water was indeed beneficial to her healing. However, it would be fine if she was facing the yellow-shirt woman and the others. Now that they were alone in the room, how could she undress in front of a stranger? Even though the Muzhuan tribe was not as strict as the Southern Song dynasty, it was still difficult for her to accept such behavior. Wait, why cold water? Hu Qingtong suddenly realized. Because I'll give you a medicine with extreme yang energy later. Cold water will absorb the heat from your body, otherwise you'll be burned to death. Song Qingshu answered. With his cultivation, it was easy for him to cure the cold poison. Unfortunately, he was Jiao Baoyu now. Once he made a move, it would mean that his identity would be exposed, and he could not use martial arts. Therefore, he could only use medicine. Fortunately, he had been in the Jianghu for so many years and had suffered from poison before. Therefore, he always had all kinds of medicine on him, including the Island of Heroes Blaze Pill. The messenger of rewarding kindness and punishing evil in the journey of the gallant was highly skilled in martial arts. The reason why he was able to produce a large number of such experts was mainly due to the Island of Gallant's unique inner strength cultivation method, combined with the cultivation of the 99 pills and the blaze elixir. The 99 pills were made from the combination of the Great Cold and the Great Cold, while the blaze elixir was made from the combination of the Great Heat and the Great Heat. If one did not have the corresponding cultivation method to complement it, both of these items would be highly toxic. Using medicine to cure him would make it easier for him to deal with the questioning of the yellow-robed woman in Shui Baochai. What medicine? Hu Qingtong asked. Song Qingshu briefly introduced the origin of the 99 pill and said, "This medicine is related to the big secret of my life. If outsiders know about my relationship with the Island of Heroes, I'm afraid it will cause a great disturbance. Therefore, I hope you can promise not to tell anyone how I saved you." Hu Qingtong blinked her eyes. She had never expected that this good-for-nothing young man would have connections with the mysterious Isle of Heroes. Seeing that he had revealed such an important secret, she felt a little embarrassed. "Young master, please tell me this secret. If I were to reveal it to the public, I will definitely be destroyed by heaven and earth." "Miss, you don't have to make such a vow. I trust the character of the yellow-robed man." Song Qingshu laughed secretly. These girls were so gullible. In fact, it did not matter even if she told others. After all, the relationship between the Jia family and the Island of Heroes could not be hidden from people with ulterior motives after the Wu-Tang Mountain incident. Hua Qingtong suddenly blushed. But we are men and women. You want me to take off my clothes and bathe in front of you? Although you did it to save me, but Song Qing-shu answered, Miss, you don't have to worry. I'll bring a screen to block between you. Behind the screen, I'll tell you how to circulate your qi to protect your heart and avoid being hurt by the poison of the blaze pill. Hua Qingtong was prepared to accept it. After all, it was a troubled time for the Wooden Table Ethics Department. Her life was much more important than the illusory innocence. Moreover, there was water between them. At most, she would only be seen a few times. It was not completely unacceptable. As for what Zhang Wuji would think, she did not care. Those who believed her would believe her without her explanation. Those who did not believe her would not have any meaning no matter how much she explained. Who knew that he would take the initiative to propose a plan that could satisfy both sides? She was surprised and felt a little ashamed. She had gauged the heart of a gentleman with her own mean measure. Thank you, young master. However, not only did you save my life, but you also taught me the cultivation method of the Island of Heroes. I really can't repay you. Miss, you can consider marrying me. Song Qing-shu used the candlelight to size up the beauty in front of him. Her lips were red, her teeth were white, her skin was fair, and there was a special heroic spirit between her brows. It seemed that Xinjiang had produced beauties since ancient times. 33 Hua Qingtong's heart skipped a beat. She hurriedly rejected. I'm already engaged. I can only let you down. I know. You're Zhang Wuji from the Ming Dynasty. Song Qingshu smiled. I'm just joking. I can't bear to watch such a beautiful lady die. If you're grateful, it's fine as long as you don't leak this cultivation method. Actually, it was not a big deal if it was leaked. He would only teach her a small part of the incantation and not the entire cultivation method of the Island of Heroes. Qingtong will always remember young master's righteousness. After some conversation, Hua Qingtong's way of addressing him became more respectful. Righteousness. Song Qing-shu rubbed his nose. A certain female teacher with a surname Bai suddenly appeared in his mind. Soon, the maidservant prepared the cold water. Song Qing-shu pointed to the bathtub at the side. Miss, please. Hua Qingtong, who had always been straightforward, showed a hint of bashfulness. Thank you, young master. Song Qing-shu smiled and moved the screen over. Hua Qingtong then slowly unbuttoned her dress, revealing skin that was fairer than that of a Han woman. Sitting behind the screen, Song Qing-shu looked at the moving figure on the screen with a strange expression on his face. He wondered what her reaction would be if she knew that, with my cultivation, it wouldn't make much of a difference whether I had this screen or not. After hesitating for a while, Song Qing-shu turned his back to the screen. He did not want to take advantage of her now. Baoyu, what are you doing, Shueb Baochai's question and Hua Qingtong's exclamation were heard at the same time. It turned out that Shueb Baochai and the yellow-shirt lady had found out that Jia Baoyu had ordered the maidservant to prepare the bathtub and water. The more they thought about it, the more they felt that something was wrong. They were worried that he would do something to her when she was poisoned and unable to resist. If that happened, the consequences would be dire. Who knew that they would see Hua Qingtong naked the moment they entered the room? Fortunately, the yellow-shirt lady was quick to close the door immediately. Otherwise, everyone would have seen her yellow gown. What happened? Yang Xiao, Chen Jia, Hua Ai, and the rest heard the exclamation and became anxious. They all surrounded the door. No, nothing. Hua Qingtong's heart was beating very fast. She even thought that if she could maintain her current heartbeat for a long time, she would probably be able to warm up without any help. Hearing his answer, Yang Xiao and the others retreated doubtfully. Miss Hua, if there's anything you need, just shout and we'll come in. No need, I'm fine. Hua Qingtong did not dare to let anyone in. At this time, Shueb Baochai had already observed the situation in the room. Seeing that Song Qing-shu was sitting behind the screen, she heaved a sigh of relief. Then, she became a little angry. Baoyu, what is going on? To force the cold poison out of her, Song Qing-shu answered matter-of-factly. Chapter 22-29. Song Qing-shu knew that they were not easy to fool, so he explained, I don't know how to expel the poison, but I can use medicine. I'm going to use the blaze elixir to expel the cold poison. The blaze elixir of the Island of Heroes? The girl in yellow and Shui Baochai both knew the relationship between the Jia family and the Island of Heroes, so they suddenly realized something. However, they soon noticed another problem. Although the blaze elixir can expel the cold poison, it's also highly toxic. Song Qing-shu answered, the Island of Heroes has its own set of internal energy that can restrain the poison of the blaze elixir. Miso can just use it. You can use your internal energy? Shui Baochai looked at him in surprise. Song Qing-shu explained, I wasn't interested in martial arts before, but the elders in my family told me to memorize some of the skills of the Island of Heroes. Shui Baochai hurriedly reminded him, don't tell anyone about this. As the saying goes, treasuring a jade ring becomes a crime. Many people in the Jianghu covet the martial arts of the Island of Heroes. You can't protect yourself now. So many people will come to trouble you. Song Qing-shu agreed. He sighed in his heart that the girl really cared about Jia Baoyu and had considered everything for him. The girl in yellow considered another problem. But still too risky. Miss Hua has never practiced the skills of the Island of Heroes before, and you don't understand it either. Won't it be over if you make a mistake? But Miss Hua is going to die, so we can only try. Song Qing-shu could not tell them that he actually knew the internal energy of the Island of Heroes. Hua Qingtong, who was at the side, rolled his eyes. Why did the word dead horse sound so harsh? Shui Baochai and the girl in yellow looked at each other. In fact, they had another choice, which was not to take the risk to save Hua Qingtong. If they did not save her, it would have nothing to do with them, even if she died. However, if they failed to save her, it would cause a lot of trouble. Of course, it was not appropriate to say this out loud. The two girls hesitated for a while, but did not stop them. I'll guard the door in case someone outside rushes in and sees Miss Hua, the yellow-robed woman said. She had been injured before and had consumed a lot of her true qi. She wouldn't be of much help even if she stayed here. Besides, it was a taboo to eavesdrop on other sex martial arts in the martial arts world. Thank you, young lady. Hua Qingtong's face was filled with gratitude. It was fine if it were two ladies who barged in previously, but if a group of men barged in later, she would really be too embarrassed to face anyone. Then I'll stay here to protect you. Shui Baochai didn't think too much about it. She was just worried that something would happen to Jia Baoyu. At least she could take care of Jia Baoyu. Song Qing-shu then took out a Lai Hua pill. The Lai Hua pill's medicinal properties were very strong. Even people with cultivations like Zhang San and Li Si only dared to take a small sip at a time. Of course, he couldn't let Hua Qingtong consume all of it. He scraped a layer of powder with his fingernail and mixed it into the wine for Hua Qingtong to consume. Then he told her about the Island of Heroes' inner strength cultivation method and let Hua Qingtong circulate her true qi. As soon as the wine entered her stomach, Hua Qingtong felt a surge of heat in her cold dantian. It was warm and extremely comfortable, and she could not help but feel refreshed. However, the heat soon became a little scorching. She did not dare to delay and immediately circulated her qi according to the chant, guiding the medicinal power of the Lai Hua pill to her limbs and bones. This process should have been very painful. One must know that the messengers of rewarding kindness and punishing evil had suffered a lot when they first started practicing this martial art. However, Hua Qingtong had been poisoned by the ice silkworm. The heat and cold balanced each other, and the more she practiced, the more comfortable she felt. Song Qing-shu had a strange expression on his face. Initially, he thought that Hua Qingtong would make some mistakes during her practice. After all, it was difficult for an ordinary person to not make any mistakes after listening to the chant. If that was the case, he would be able to run over to help her. As for what he should not have seen or touched, he really could not be blamed. Who knew that Hua Qingtong was extremely talented? She basically learned it immediately. There were no accidents during the whole process. Miss Hua is really talented. You actually learned it so quickly. Song Qing-shu scraped some Lai Hua pills and mixed them into the wine for Shui Baochai to take. After all, the ice silkworm's cold poison and the Shinzu scripture's inner strength were not so easy to dissolve. They needed to be dissolved bit by bit. Young master's memory is really amazing. There are no mistakes in the martial art. Hua Qingtong originally thought that the other party did not know martial arts, so the martial arts secret from his mouth could be somewhat credible. However, she did not expect that there would be no obstacles after practicing it. Love to read, right? Song Qing-shu thought that, of course. An expert at the great grandmaster level would personally explain it to you, and the content would also be easily understood. One must know that the original martial art of the Isle of Heroes was much more obscure. Shui Baochai could not help but smile when she heard the famous halcyon feathered yellow shirt praise Baoyu. Originally, she was a little worried about the future of the two of them because of the Jia family's incident. Although she did not mind, the people in her family would definitely not agree. However, if Baoyu could rely on the Isle of Heroes' secret manual to master the peerless martial arts, the two of them would have much fewer obstacles. After all, the Jia family had two great grandmasters in the past. After about 2 hours, Hua Qingtong finally forced all the cold poison out of her body. With the help of Shui Baochai, she got out of the bathtub. As she put on her clothes, she thanked Song Qing-shu, who was behind the screen. "Young master, I will never forget your great kindness in saving me." "Miss, just remember what you promised me," Song Qing-shu replied. "Qingtong will remember." Hua Qingtong nodded slightly. "Miss Hua, why is your skin so white?" Shui Baochai was a little curious at first, but she thought that since Hua Qingtong had promised to keep it a secret, he would most likely not say anything. However, she immediately noticed that Hua Qingtong's skin was different from that of the women in the Central Plains. She sighed and envied her. "Miss Shui's skin is also very good. It's much more delicate than mine. I'm often exposed to the wind and rain outside." Hua Qingtong also praised her sincerely. Song Qing-shu could not help but laugh. "Stop flattering each other. The people outside are probably getting impatient. Hurry up and go out." "All right, Qingtong will take her leave." Hua Qingtong took a deep look behind the screen and walked out. Seeing her come out, Hua Ai, Yang Xiao, and the others hurriedly surrounded her. "How is it?" Hua Qingtong moved her limbs. "The cold poison in my body has been cured. This gigolo is really amazing." Seeing that his sister was safe and sound, Hua Ai could not help but smile. Yang Xiao could not help but ask. Even someone as skilled as Miss Yang could not save her. How did a playboy like him save her? Hua Qingtong recalled her previous promise and replied, "Left Emissary Yang, don't ask anymore. It's fine as long as she has been cured." Yang Xiao was stunned. He had always been meticulous and quickly noticed that her hair and clothes seemed to be wet. Furthermore, it was a little different from before. His heart couldn't help but jump. Could she have taken off her clothes inside? In a place like the Ming Dynasty where good and bad people were mixed together, Yang Xiao had seen too many filthy things. His thoughts went astray, and his expression turned unsightly. Should he inform the cult leader about today's matter? If he didn't, he would be letting the cult leader down. But if he did, this matter would be caused by him. What kind of malefic star did my Ming Dynasty offend? Why did so many cult leaders' wives get into trouble? Yang Xiao was speechless when he thought about Yang Dingtian's wife, Zhou Zhuhua, Zhao Min, and now Hua Qingtong, who seemed to have the same tendency. It took a long time to heal. It didn't take long for the sky to brighten. The competition on the third day was held as scheduled. This time, the first match was between Su Liuwu and Bai Yuhuan. Song Qing-shu and Wang Baobao both knew that Bai Yuhuan was Dan Yuru. With her martial arts, even if Su Liuwu was at his peak, he might not be able to win, let alone now that his legs were broken and he was in a wheelchair. Chapter 2230. Wang Baobao, who was below the stage, clearly had the same thoughts. He shouted, "Su Liuwu, you're already a cripple. Why are you still trying to act tough? Hurry up and surrender." Over the past few years, Su Liuwu had been invincible in the Western expedition, and his prestige in the army was like the sun at high noon. If he took the initiative to surrender without a fight, the blow to his prestige would be devastating. Are you so sure that I will lose? Su Liu sneered. Wang Baobao snorted. This by young master's martial arts. Even if you were at your peak, you might not be able to defeat him. Now you can't even stand up. How are you going to fight him? Su Liu said indifferently. There are ways to fight while standing, and there are ways to fight while sitting. There is no need for you to worry. On the arena, Dan Yuru couldn't help but chuckle. Your Highness, your calm demeanor is admirable. If it were any other time, I might be willing to sit and fight with you. But today is about marrying the princess, so I won't be merciful. Do as you wish, Su Liu said calmly. Seeing how calm he was, Song Qingshu couldn't help but feel a little strange. Was Su Liu pretending to be calm, or did he really have a backup plan? If that's the case, then I'll have to offend you. Dan Yuru was also a little afraid of his reaction. She used a feint at the beginning, but the other party didn't move at all. As a result, she had to jump around like a monkey. Dan Yuru was annoyed and thought that she was being too cautious. Even if Su Liu is not injured, his martial arts are about the same as mine. If we fight to the death, with the help of Enweed faction's demonic art, I will most likely be the one who wins. Right now, his legs are broken and he's sitting in a wheelchair. What threat does he pose to me? After thinking through all of this, she let out a delicate shout and directly rushed down the middle. This time, not only did she won't win, she wanted to win beautifully and make Su Liu lose all his face. One had to know that brother Ali Buge, Su Liu, and Kublai were never on good terms. If she could make Su Liu lose face in front of all the heroes of the world, brother Ali Buge would definitely be extremely happy, and the status of the Heavens sect would also rise. Suddenly, she saw Su Liu take out a black tube from his bosom. She was stunned. A hidden weapon. As the leader of the Destiny sect, she didn't care about most of the hidden weapons in the Jianghu. However, for some reason, the black tube in front of her gave her a strong sense of danger. She twisted her waist and hurriedly dodged to the side. At this time, the pipe in Su Liu's hand flashed, and everyone heard a loud bang. Then, Dan Yuru screamed and fell heavily to the ground. Half of her clothes dyed red with blood. What kind of hidden weapon is this? Everyone in the field was shocked. How could it be so powerful? Even the Tang sect's torrential pear blossom needles were only this powerful, right? Flintlock. Song Qingshu's pupil shrank. The others might not recognize it, but how could he not recognize it? In fact, there were also flintlocks in the Qing dynasty, and Wei Xiaobao had one in his hand back then. However, the flintlocks of this era were slow to reload, had a short range, and had low accuracy. Their advantages on the battlefield were not significantly better than bows and arrows, so they were not widely used. Most of the time, they were just playthings for a few top-notch officials. Su Liu had conquered many countries in the western region, so it was normal for him to have flintlocks in his hands. Normally, they were not very useful, but when he suddenly took them out to deal with an unprepared master, the effect was really good. No wonder he was so confident even though his leg was broken. Of course, it was not difficult for the top masters of this era to avoid flintlocks as long as they were prepared in advance. After all, the flintlocks of this era could not be fired continuously. Wang Baobao stood up angrily. Su Liu, how dare you use hidden weapons? Su Liu blew the smoke from the barrel and sneered. Did anyone say that hidden weapons are not allowed in this competition? A few days ago, the hidden weapons master of the Seven Green sect was praised by everyone. He was originally a powerful martial artist with many masters under his command, so he did not care about flintlocks. However, he was scared by the mysterious man that night, so he had no choice but to find the trophies he had obtained from the West to defend himself. Wang Baobao's face turned green and then red. He knew that he was not in the right, so he could only snort and sit down angrily. Zilong Literature Dan Yuru struggled to get up. A large area on the right side of her body was already dyed red with blood. At this moment, her face was extremely pale. Your Highness, I will definitely remember what you have done for me today. After saying this, she did not wait for the referee on the arena to announce the winner and directly disappeared into the distance with a leap. Song Qingshu saw clearly that it was fortunate that Dan Yuru had dodged at the crucial moment. Otherwise, she would have died on the spot. However, she had suffered such a serious injury, so the situation was not optimistic. On the arena, Su Liu looked at Dan Yuru's disappearing figure with a cold expression. He gave a look to his subordinate below the arena, who nodded and quietly left the arena. Shui Pan could not help but sigh. If I had known earlier, I would have gotten a flintlock as well. I might have been able to kill that Dong Ying devil with one shot yesterday. Shui Baochai, who was at the side, dispelled his thoughts. The loading of a flintlock is complicated, and the shooting range is short. It is almost useless against an expert. The reason why Su Liu was able to hit that person was because the other party did not expect such an unforeseen event. Secondly, Su Liu was an expert himself. Although his leg was injured, his movements were still fast enough. Even so, that Bai Yuhuan managed to avoid being hit in the vital parts in a flash. If it were you would definitely not be able to hurt her. Only then did Shui Pan resentfully dispel his thoughts. Lu Shisheng, who was at the side, said, I had a faint sense of danger yesterday. I had a premonition that if I really fought with him, I would most likely be in trouble. Today, it seems that I was right. The people around him all agreed, praising him for his unique foresight. Seeing that he had successfully cleared his name, Shui Pan was even more displeased. The second match was between Galdan and Miyamoto Musashi, the Dong Ying swordsman. Galdan's kung fu in this world was much stronger than that in the Deer in the Cauldron, but he was not a top master. There was no suspense in the battle between him and Miyamoto Musashi, and he was soon defeated. Galdan did not care. He was good at strategizing and deciding the outcome of a battle from 1,000 miles away. He was not good at charging and breaking through enemy lines. He had achieved his purpose of coming to Xixia this time, so it was not a big deal to lose to a Dong Ying master. Compared to the disappointment of the others on the drill ground, which was because they saw that the masters from the Central Plains were no match for Dong Ying, Sasaki Kojuro's disappointment was purely on martial arts. He did not expect that Galdan's kung fu was not enough to make Miyamoto Musashi pull out his second blade. Other people did not know about it, but Sasaki, who was also a famous Dong Ying swordsman, knew very well that Miyamoto Musashi's trump card was the Nitten Ichiryu, which was a double blade technique. One of the two blades was Yin and the other was Yang, which doubled the power when combined. He had never seen Miyamoto Musashi use the real Nitten Ichiryu, just like Miyamoto Musashi had never seen his swallow return. While Sasaki was feeling regretful, the referee had announced the third match. Prince Zongzan of Tubo was fighting against Duan Yu, the Crown Prince of Dali. Zongzan swaggered to the ring, but Duan Yu, the Crown Prince of Dali, did not show up. Zhu Danshan of Dali had to come out and say, Our Crown Prince was kidnapped by a villain. I'm afraid he can't come today. Zongzan was unhappy. Your Crown Prince is missing. Why are you staring at me? Who knows? Maybe he's sleeping around somewhere. Zhu Danshan said coldly, May I ask where your National Master Jiumaji is now? Zongzan replied, The National Master is practicing in seclusion, so he won't come today. At this time, Princess Jinsheng said softly, Guard Zhu, please rest assured that your Crown Prince will come back safely. After all, she was now the Princess of Tubo, so she could only say so much. Zhu Danshan thought of what Mu Wanqing had said before, and at this time, he could only believe her. Chapter 22:31. The Jin Kingdom and the Song Kingdom are mortal enemies. This is going to be interesting. Apparently, the audience was dissatisfied with the victory. Interesting my ass. Look at who's on the stage this time. Damn, it's that shameless bastard. Damn, it's really that bastard. In the first round, he bribed his opponent with money. In the second round, his opponent had diarrhea. Let's see what he can do in this round. The Jin Kingdom and the Song Kingdom are mortal enemies. This time, his opponent is the king of the Jin Kingdom. He can't be bribed. I want to see how Jia Baoyu will be beaten. Hearing the conversation in the air, Song Qing-shu was speechless. It seemed that his opportunistic behavior in the first 2 rounds had angered everyone. Aren't you on good terms with the young prince of the Jin Kingdom? If you have the ability, make him give in to you. Xiao Tongfu and the Liu brothers joked. In their opinion, no matter how good their relationship was, when it came to the marriage and the honor of the country, the other side had no reason to hold back. Xue Baochai frowned and reminded him, "Be careful." In her opinion, their relationship was not ordinary. This time, Jia Baiyu would not be in any danger. As for the result of the battle, she did not care much. In any case, advancing to this round was already good enough. There was no need to force it. Song Qingshu nodded. On the way to the stage, he ran into Wanyan Zhongjia. She pouted and said, "You haven't come to find me in the past 2 days. Today, I won't give in to you." Song Qingshu was stunned. Only then did he realize that the 2 days of indifference had caused her to throw a tantrum. He felt a headache coming on, but under the watchful eyes of the audience, he could not say anything. He could not help but worry. Wanyan Zhongjia's martial arts were not weak. In addition, he had been taught by Ouyang Feng all these years. He could be considered a master in Jianghu. If he did not reveal his strength, it would be troublesome to fight. Just as he was about to talk to her using secret voice sending, Wanyan Zhongjia had already made his move. "Watch out!" The audience only saw a white shadow flash. She had already appeared in front of Song Qingshu. This is the white camel manners Qinggong, 1,000 miles in a breath. This young prince is the successor of the Western poison Ouyang Feng. He, this Jia Baoyu is finished. Song Qingshu was startled, but before he could think of a way to deal with this, Wanyan Zhongjia retreated back to his original position at an even faster speed. Good eyesight. You were actually able to anticipate my move and break it first. Everyone on the drill ground looked at each other. What had just happened? The Jia guy didn't seem to have moved at all. Could it be that the man surnamed Jia was really hiding his strength? Even the Liu brothers and Xiao Tongfu from the Southern Song dynasty looked at each other. Others might not know, but they knew the relationship between Jia Baiyu and the Isle of Heroes. Could it be that this guy had been pretending to be weak all along? Even Xue Baochai was a little shaken. She could not help but pull the yellow-robed woman next to her. "Sister Yang, is Baoyu really that skilled in martial arts?" "Tell my ass." As soon as the yellow-robed woman spoke, her face turned red. She didn't know why, but when she saw Jia Baoyu, she couldn't help but feel angry. The two of them are acting. It seems that your family's Baoyu is really charming. Even the Jin Kingdom's prince is willing to go easy on him. After understanding everything, Xue Baochai couldn't help but feel a little worried. This time, Baoyu's luck with women was too good. Ouyang Feng, who was sitting at the Jin Kingdom's banquet, was livid. He was one of the few people who knew what was going on. He thought to himself, if this girl wants to send her lover off, she shouldn't use my martial arts. Look at my spirit snake fist. Ouyang Feng couldn't stand it anymore when he heard Wanyan Zhongji use his special skill. He snorted and left the banquet early. It was too vexing to watch. Out of sight, out of mind. Everyone on the drill ground saw Wanyan Zhongjia's arms suddenly become boneless. It was as if his arms had turned into a flexible whip that could twist and turn in the air at will. Many of the experts on the drill ground were amazed. I heard that Ouyang Feng, the Western poison, was preparing to use this skill for the second sword meet on Mount Hua. It is indeed amazing. Just as he was about to hit his opponent, Wanyan Zhongjia's arms suddenly twisted and hit his own chest. He screamed and rolled back to his original position. He spat out the blood that he had prepared earlier and pointed at his opponent with a shocked expression. What a strong internal energy. You actually covered your body with a 3-foot wall of internal energy? Just the recoil alone was enough to seriously injure me. I admit defeat. Song Qingshu was speechless. He thought, your acting is too exaggerated. The Central Plains book. The people on the drill ground weren't fools. They were frightened at first, but when they saw this, how could they not understand what was going on? They all started cursing. Shameless. Don't you have any shame? This is rigged. I want a refund. Hey, did you buy a ticket? The entire drill ground was in an uproar. Many people started throwing things into the field. The referee on the stage had a dark expression on his face and hurriedly asked them to leave the stage. This Jia guy was really not a good person. Every time, he caused a commotion. Song Qing-shu was also very helpless. How could he be blamed for this? Did you really think that I was going to fight you? Wang Yanzhongzhi laughed heartlessly and moved closer to Song Qing-shu with an excited expression. Song Qing-shu nodded. At first, I really thought that you were going to fight me for real. Wang Yanzhongzhi laughed even more happily. How could I bear to make things difficult for you? I was just joking with you. How was my acting? The first half was okay, but after that, Song Qing-shu pointed at the excited audience in all directions. Just look at their reactions, and you'll know. Wang Yanzhongji's eyes lit up. They were really impressed by my acting. Look at how excited they are. Song Qing-shu was speechless. The next match was between the Ming Dynasty's left emissary of light, Yang Xiao, and the Southern Song Dynasty's yellow-robed woman. Yang Xiao directly admitted defeat. The audience immediately became angry. You guys haven't even fought each other. How do you know that you can't win? At least that Jia guy said that he could put on a show. You guys don't even want to put on a show? Song Qing-shu had a depressed expression. He was already on the field, but he was still implicated. Yang Xiao said, "Last night, I fought with Aunt Yang I admire her divine claws very much. I'm ashamed of my inferiority. Even if I fought 1,000 times or 10,000 times, I still wouldn't be her match. Even if he hadn't been saved by the yellow-robed woman last night, he would still be seriously injured and wouldn't be able to go on stage now." The audience responded to him with boos. Over at the beggar sect, Zhuang Juxian looked at him with a puzzled expression. He felt that there was a familiar aura on him. It was very similar to the person from last night. However, he had been poisoned by his ice silkworm. How could he recover so quickly? The next match was between the Southern Song Dynasty's Xiao Tongfu and the Japanese's Xiu Siyai. In front of Xu Sei's ninjutsu that was full of tricks, Xiao Tong fell into a disadvantageous position right from the start, and he didn't last long before he was defeated. Even though the level of brilliance was average, the victory lay in the intensity of the fight. The audience had watched several rounds of absences, acting, surrendering, and now that they saw such a real fight, they all cheered. However, Xue Pan didn't let go of this great opportunity to ridicule Xiao Tongfu, who was so arrogant yesterday. In the end, he was beaten like a dog. Our Baoyu is still the best. He's just lucky. I don't believe that anyone will give up to him. Xiao Tongfu was already in a bad mood after his defeat. Now that he was provoked by Xue Pan, he immediately exploded. The yellow-robed woman had a strange expression on her face. She thought that if he defeated Prince Zongzan in the next round, he would fight her. Then, according to the agreement, she would let him. Chapter 22-32. The next match had already begun. Si Siluo was up against Hua Ai of the Wood Table Luan tribe. Hua Ai's kung fu was mediocre, and he had not mastered the three-part sword art. Last night, he had been busy with his sister's affairs, so he was not in a good condition. Due to these factors, he was defeated by Si Siluo's Tantra Kung Fu within a few moves. Zongzan was terrified, thinking that Si Siluo's Kung Fu was much better than his. He decided to go back and discuss with the Imperial Advisor to see if there was a way to deal with him. Thinking of a rejection of Jiao Maji's suggestion to kill Si Siluo, Zongzan was annoyed. He thought that if the Imperial Advisor still did not agree, he would organize his own experts to assassinate him. When Si Siluo got off the stage, he met Zongzan's eyes. His eyes moved between Zongzan and the Princess of Jincheng, thinking that the time was ripe for his plan. When Hua Ai got off the stage, he was dejected. Hua Qingtong had expected this and comforted him softly. That person is proficient in Tantra Kung Fu. It's not shameful to lose to him. Moreover, the princess will not only look at the results of the contest. Don't be too discouraged, big brother. The people of the Ming Dynasty tried to comfort him, and Hua Ai's expression became better. In the distance, Su Liuwu saw his reaction and secretly shook his head. Although the Muzhuoluan tribe was powerful now, this kind of successor was destined to not last long. It was time to pull in the net that he had set up in the Muzhuoluan tribe. The next to go on the stage was Xiao Feng. His opponent admitted defeat as soon as he got on the stage. Xiao Feng was too famous in the martial arts world, and after the battle at Virtuous Village, he was regarded as a devil. Most people did not dare to fight with him. Seeing that someone had given up, the crowd booed. The next match was between Yin Yuang of the Ming Dynasty and Zhuang Juxian, the chief of the beggar sect. Originally, Yang Xiao wanted him to admit defeat, but Yin Yuang did not agree. Zhuang Juxian's poison had made Yang Xiao and his future niece-in-law suffer. He had a bad temper, so he wanted to help them vent their anger. After all, Yin Yuang was the Dharmaraja of the cult and the cult leader's uncle. Yang Xiao could not make the decision for him, so he warned him to be careful. He knew that Zhuang Juxian's internal energy was extraordinarily high, and he also had cold poison attribute, but his shortcomings were also very obvious. His punching and kicking skills were too crude. Therefore, as soon as Yin Yuang stepped onto the stage, he immediately began to attack. Sure enough, Zhuang Juxian was caught unprepared. White-browed Eagle King's Eagle Claw was considered a very exquisite martial arts skill in Jianghu. Perhaps it was second only to Shaolin's Dragon Claw hand. Very quickly, Zhuang Juxian was deceived by the feint, and his shoulder was clamped by the opponent's Eagle Claw. Yin Yuang sneered. He was about to seize the opportunity to cripple the opponent's two arms to avenge Yang Xiao and the others, who knew that Zhuang Juxian practiced the Shinzu scripture, so his flexibility was top-notch. With both of his shoulders restrained, it was almost impossible for a normal person to resist. However, he twisted his body at an unbelievable angle and instantly got out of the opponent's control. Yin Yuang only felt a strange force coming from his hand, and then he lost control of the enemy. He was greatly alarmed and hastily retreated, but it was already too late. A burst of cold air assaulted him. The opponent's palms had already landed on his body. We admit defeat. Yang Xiao hastily stood up. They had personally witnessed Zhuang Juxian's vicious and merciless methods. They were afraid that Yin Yuang would meet his end. Because of the previous death incident, the officials of the Western Xia country had increased their attention in this aspect today. Upon hearing that Zhuang Juxian had admitted defeat, the referee hurriedly stood between the two of them and announced the victory of Zhuang Juxian. Zhuang Juxian chuckled and left the ring without looking back. "Wild King, how are you?" The people of the Ming Dynasty hastily gathered around him. They were all very worried. Yesterday, Yang Xiao was poisoned by the opponent's cold poison and almost lost half his life. He even caused the people who saved him to be seriously injured. Yin Yuang's internal strength was not as good as Yang Xiao's. Now that he was hit by the opponent's palm, they were afraid. "I don't think I can hold on any longer." Ugh! Yin Yuang spat out a mouthful of blood. There were pieces of his internal organs in the blood. When the blood touched the ground, it instantly froze. It was clear how powerful the cold poison was. The hearts of Yang Xiao, Hu Qingtong, and the rest sank. They knew that even if a Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal came, he would not be able to save him. "Love Book House, let Wuji avenge me." Yin Yuang grabbed Yang Xiao's lapel. Although Zhuang Juxian's internal strength was high, his shortcomings were also very obvious. If Zhang Wuji were to make a move, it would not be difficult to kill him. Also, tell that girl Ainli that father is sorry. Her mother. After saying this, Yin Yuang's hand weakly fell to the side. It was obvious that he had stopped breathing. "Wild King." The people of the Ming Dynasty suddenly wailed. Yang Xiao suddenly stood up and stared at Zhuang Juxian. He said, "Your Excellency's attack was too heavy." Before Zhuang Juxian could answer, Quan Guanxing answered on his behalf. "Just now when Yin Yuang restrained our clan leader's arms, did he think of holding back? If it were not for our clan leader's unparalleled martial arts, I am afraid his fate would not be much better. It was just a normal defense in a moment of desperation." Song Qing-shu could not help but look at Quan Guanxing a few more times. He thought that this fellow indeed looked somewhat similar to that fellow, Chen Yuliang. Could it be that this was the so-called innate rebellious nature? At this time, Su Liwu also opened his mouth and said, It is said that everyone in the Ming dynasty is a great hero who can support the heavens and the earth. I did not expect that you would not admit your defeat and still blame the other party. Because of Zhao Min, Wang Baobao's impression of the Ming dynasty was also extremely bad. For the first time, he did not refute Su Liawu's words. He only watched coldly from the side. With Su Liawu taking the lead, the good friends of the Mongolian clan and the beggar clan all chimed in. The reputation of the Ming dynasty in Jianghu was originally not good. For a moment, they seemed to be alone. Good, very good. The Ming dynasty will remember today's enmity. Yang Zhao's face was ashen. He picked up Yin Yuang and left the arena. Shui Baochai could not help but pull on Song Qingshu's sleeve and said, "Bao Yu, it is too dangerous in the arena now. People die at the slightest movement. It is better for you not to participate in the following matches." Song Qingshu thought that if he did not participate, Li Qinglu would tear him apart. He said, "Don't worry, I am very clever. If I see that the situation is not right, I will immediately admit defeat. Besides, there is you and Miss Yang to look after me. Also, my family has sent the Central Plains Red Dot to secretly protect me." Only then did Shui Baochai relax a little. She knew about the Central Plains Red Dot. Speaking of which, a large part of his sword techniques were taught to him by his older brother, Shui. At this time, Song Qingshu felt a little sad. Seeing a somewhat familiar and positive character from the original work die in front of him had a great impact on him. At this time, the next match had already begun on the arena. Mysterious Finger School's Shang Wanfeng versus Xingxiu Sec's Zhai Xingzi. In the previous round, Shang Wanfeng had used the sleeping gas in his pipe to ambush Ye Luqi. In the end, his opponent just happened to be Zhai Xingzi, who was good at using poison. This time, his sleeping gas was clearly not enough. He was beaten up by his opponent's heart-piercing nail, bliss thorn, formless powder, jade phosphorus needle, and in the end, he was even poisoned by Zhai Xingzi's body-dissolving poison. Although he obtained the antidote in the end, he would most likely be crippled for the rest of his life. Seeing one dead and one crippled in the two matches, Shui Pan swallowed hard. He could not help but say, "Before this, I thought that I was unlucky to encounter that Japanese expert. Now that I think about it, it is not a bad thing to be eliminated early." Chapter 2233. The next match was between Zheng Keshuang and Chun Jialuo of the Red Flower Society. The martial arts of the Zheng family were average. Only Chun Jinan and Feng Shifan could be called masters. Zheng Keshuang was Zheng Kashuang's younger brother. If the elder brother's martial arts were so bad, then the younger brother's martial arts were naturally not much better. He had advanced because his opponent, Fang Yeyu, had died. This time, he was almost unable to fight back against Chun Jiao's 100 Flowers fist. Then it was Guo Jing's disciple, Wu Duanru, against Nalen Rongrua. Although Da's talent was average and his martial arts were not worth mentioning in the eyes of real masters, he was taught by a famous master after all. Nalen Rongrua was naturally gifted and intelligent, but she was more fond of poetry and songs. She wasn't that interested in the path of martial arts. So when the two of them fought, they were evenly matched, and the general met a talented general. They had come to find Guo Jing's whereabouts. A few days ago, they had found out from a fur trader in the north that Guo Jing had indeed appeared in Mongolia. Therefore, they were not in the mood to continue participating in the marriage contest. After a few dozen moves, they found an opportunity to admit defeat. "Your Excellency did not show any signs of defeat. Why did you admit defeat so rashly?" Nalen Rongrua could not help but ask. Wu Yinju, who was watching from below the stage, could not help but cover her face with her hands. What a fool. If it were anyone else, who would not want their opponent to surrender as soon as possible. However, she also understood that her childhood friend had always been a modest gentleman. She could not blame him. Dao gave a perfunctory explanation and left the stage. He did not say that he was looking for Guo Jing. After all, there were Mongolians and Jin people on the training ground. He was afraid that they would harm his master. Song Qingshu sighed inwardly. In fact, this group originally had Fang Yeyu and Madame Zhen two experts. Unfortunately, Fang Yu had been killed by him, and Madame Zhen had retreated behind the scenes. As a result, the duels in this group were somewhat lackluster. Next was Wu Xiaowen against Su Zhu of Shaolin Temple. In the past few years, Su Zhu's name could be said to be rising in Jianghu. All the sects knew that there was a little monk in Shaolin Temple who was proficient in the 72 ultimate skills. Wu Xiaowen thought that they were about the same age and could not tarnish his master's reputation. He wanted to ask for advice. Unfortunately, their martial arts skills were far inferior. Su Zhu easily took his long sword with a flower-pinching finger technique, which made him feel ashamed. Shaolin Temple's martial arts are really powerful. So Hero Guo's last disciple is only a so-so. That Hero Guo's kung fu is probably not as good as the Shaolin monks. Hearing the noise around him, Wu Xiaowen felt ashamed. If he had known this would happen, he would have surrendered like his brother. At least he would have been able to save some face. Wu Dunru comforted his younger brother. Master's safety is more important now. Why bother about other false reputations? Only then did Wu Xiaowen calm down. The two brothers left the drill grounds and headed north. The next match was between Qing Lingzi of Kunlun and Ku Jun of Lan Province's Seven Burnt Sects. Ku Jun's concealed weapon skills had really amazed a lot of people. This time he went all out. Arrows, thistles, poos, locusts, knives, darts, and nails rained down on his opponent from all directions. Qing Lingzi held his sword in front of him, as if he was a small boat in the raging waves, firmly guarding his own space. Kunlun is a famous sect, and their swordplay has always been upright. Why is his swordplay so slanted? But within the 7 or 8 slanted moves, there's an occasional upright move. It's really hard to fathom. The girl in yellow couldn't help but ask curiously. This is the Kunlun sect's rain flower swordplay. Even though it's not as good as the 9 strategies beyond the sword's arrow-breaking technique, it can still be considered a swordplay that can counter concealed weapons. I think the Ku family's disciple will be in trouble this time, Song Qing Shu said casually. How did you know? Hearing his words, the girl in yellow and Xue Baochai both looked at him suspiciously. Song Qing Shu then realized that he had let it slip. He hurriedly interrupted. I've heard the elders of my family talking about it before. The girl in yellow and Xue Baochai remembered that the 2 elders in the Jia family had cultivation levels close to that of a great grandmaster, so it wasn't surprising that they had such knowledge. Song Qingshu secretly wiped the sweat off his forehead. He thought to himself, why is it that I'm acting like a student of death, looking for excuses to cover up? Next was Lu Sherdao from the Southern Song dynasty against the Mongolian king Bao Bao. Before going on the stage, Xue Pan put on a fake smile and patted Lu Sherdao's shoulder. You have to work hard. Don't lose to Bao Bao, whom you've always looked down on in the end. Lu Sherdao was speechless. Aren't you also no match for him? Xue Pan chuckled. I'm not looking down on him. We're brothers, so there's no distinction between us. But you're different. I'm sure you'll beat the crap out of that Mongolian king. Go away. Don't make trouble. Lu Shisheng and Xiu Tongfu ran over to drive him away. At the same time, they secretly told their brothers, do what you can and admit defeat if the situation doesn't look good. Xue Pan said loudly, since you're going to surrender, why don't you just surrender as soon as you go up? Otherwise, you'll end up like the others just now, either dead or disabled. No one will think you're mute if you don't speak. Lu Sherdao glared at him hatefully. He wanted to surrender as soon as he went up, but he was afraid to leave a two-faced impression on Su Liawu. After all, Wang Bao Bao and Su Liawu were openly at odds. Moreover, there was a message from Su Liawu asking him to try his best to test Wang Bao Bao's martial arts. It would be best if he could find the weak point of his diamond body. You're the son of Lu Wendi, the one who stopped Kublai in Xiangyang all year round? Wang Bao Bao glanced at his opponent. His previous arrogance was gone. Fantasailu Sherdao hurriedly returned the greeting. Yes, my father. Your father is not bad. What a pity. Wang Bao Bao sighed. Lu Sherdao was stunned. He didn't understand what he meant by what a pity. However, it was obvious that Wang Baobao didn't intend to continue chatting. The two began a fight. Objectively speaking, Lu Shidao was different from those rich playboys in linen. He could be called a tiger from a family of generals. His martial arts were not weak either. Unfortunately, Wang Baobao was in existence with cheats. How could he be a match for him? After another dozen or so moves, Wang Baobao finally became angry. Seeing that your father is a hero, I showed mercy time and time again, but you brat don't know when to stop. Don't blame me for being impolite. After saying this, his moves suddenly became fierce. Lu Shidao blocked 2 moves and was kicked out of the ring. Lu Shidao didn't care about his injuries. He hurriedly looked in Su Liuwu's direction. He saw that Su Liuwu was frowning. Obviously, he was dissatisfied that he didn't complete the task. Lu Shidao was terrified and ashamed. This time, Xue Pan didn't take the opportunity to humiliate him again. Sasaki Kojiro, who had defeated him in the last round, was about to enter the ring. His opponent was Feng Wanli from the Snow Mountain sect. Come on, teach this Dong Ing Devil a good lesson. Xue Pan looked excited. He had specially investigated and found that Feng Wanli was the famous wind and fire dragon of the Snow Mountain sect. He could definitely help him vent his anger. Song Qingshu shook his head secretly. He was afraid that he would be disappointed. It should be known that Feng Wanli was not a match for Sasaki in his heyday, not to mention now that he had lost an arm. Although he found a new way to practice the saber technique with his left hand, he was still a little inferior to Sasaki. As expected, Sasaki's body movement was extremely fast on the ring. He appeared and disappeared unpredictably on the ring, which further magnified the disadvantage of Feng Wanli's missing arm. He was in a difficult situation and soon lost the battle. In this way, the top 16 had all been decided. Some were happy and some were sad. At this time, Duan Yu hurriedly ran into the drill ground, causing a group of people to roar with laughter. Zhu Danshin and others were very disappointed at first, but now they understood that the safety of the heir was the most important, so they didn't blame him. Seeing Princess Jinsheng communicating with Mu Wanqing in the distance, Song Qingshu secretly nodded and said, "It seems that the Tubo people are true to their words." The people of the Southern Song dynasty were about to pack up and leave when Wanyan Zhongjie came over with his men and said, "Child, shouldn't you treat me to a meal to thank me?" Song Qingshu looked embarrassed and said, "But we have set a rule here that you are not allowed to go out at will." Xue Baochai said coldly, "He helped you advance today. No matter what, you should thank him for this favor. You can go by yourself. We'll be heading back first." After saying that, she left with her subordinates, leaving Song Qingshu dumbfounded. This Miss Xue is very jealous. Wanyan Zhongjie looked at her disappearing figure and couldn't help saying, "Brother Qingshu is really charming. Even if you change your appearance, you still can't stop your supreme charm. No wonder people in Jianghu gave you a nickname. Take a person's chastity from 1,000 miles away." Song Qingshu was speechless and said, "Who dares to defame me like this? If there's a chance, I'll have to talk to them." "You want to talk to his wife?" Wanyan Zhongjie said with a smile. Song Qingshu was speechless. Wanyan Zhongjie laughed for a while and said, "Come out of the city with me. I've been locked up in the city for a while, and it's very boring." Xingqing Prefecture was located in the northwest and couldn't compare to the prosperity of the big cities in the Central Plains. Wanyan Zhongjie was a young girl and quickly grew tired of staying in the city. Okay, Song Qingshu didn't refuse. During this time, he had been very successful. It was good to go out and breathe more oxygen and relax. "You guys go back. There's no need to follow me." Wanyan Zhongjie waved his hand to the people below. Ouyang Feng couldn't bear to see his martial arts being trampled on and had already left. The guards looked at each other and said, "Princess, Xingqing Prefecture is in troubled times. I'm afraid it's not safe for you to go alone." Wanyan Zhongjie curled her lips and hugged Song Qingshu's arm. Being by his side is the safest place in the world. Some of the guards didn't know Song Qingshu's identity and didn't understand why their princess was so fond of this hedonistic son of the Southern Song dynasty. But since their statuses were different, they could only obey. Wanyan Zhongjie was very excited along the way and chattered nonstop. It was obvious that she was very happy to be alone with Song Qing-shu. After leaving the city, Wanyan Zhongjie asked Song Qing-shu to take off his mask. Wearing Jia Baoyu's face made her feel very strange. Song Qing-shu thought that it was fortunate that he had shaken off the Central Plains one red dot earlier. Otherwise, his identity would have been exposed. However, after losing him so many times, the Central Plains one red dot must have become suspicious. The two of them left the city and wandered around the outskirts for a while. Suddenly, they heard a commotion in the distance and saw a number of warriors gathering in that direction. Wanyan Zhongjie's eyes lit up. She pulled Song Qing-shu along to see what was going on. Song Qing-shu was also curious about what was going on, so he followed them. After passing through a pine forest, a plain suddenly appeared in front of them. There were many people standing there, at least 100 of them. A small path, overgrown with weeds, led to the crowd. Song Qing-shu and Wanyan Zhongjie walked along it. As they got closer, they saw a dilapidated temple at the end of the crowd. It had obviously been abandoned for a long time. The walls were in ruins, and it looked like it would collapse at any moment. The group of people surrounded the dilapidated temple. They were several zhang away from each other, but they didn't approach. Because the dilapidated temple was very small, the windows had long been broken, revealing holes, so one could see the situation inside at a glance. In the center of the temple, there was a white-clothed woman in the arms of the Buddha statue. The woman was extremely beautiful, and because she was lying on her side, the curves of her body were extremely graceful. However, lying on the Buddha throne like this gave people a strange feeling. Chapter 2234. The woman's appearance was extremely dignified and pure. Coupled with the dilapidated bronze statue on the side, she gave off the feeling of a bodhisattva. However, the right side of her clothes was stained with blood. She was lying lazily in the arms of the Buddha statue. In front of her were the corpses of several warriors, making the whole scene seem strange. Heaven's Mandate cult leader Dan Yuru, Wanyan Zhongjie had already recognized her. They had met face-to-face in the inn before. How did she get so badly injured? Song Qing-shu said, "You saw how she got injured today." Wanyan Zhongjie was also very smart. He immediately reacted. "So she's by Yuan." Song Qing-shu nodded. He recalled the look in Su Lai's eyes on the arena. Sure enough, he had sent his subordinates to kill her. This woman is still so calm and composed despite being surrounded by so many people. I admire her a little, Wanyan Zhongjie couldn't help but say. Song Qing-shu smiled. She is just bluffing. How can a gunshot wound recover so easily? Of course, Dan Yuru's elegant demeanor was indeed very admirable. Demonis, let's see where you can run this time. The leader of the group of warriors shouted angrily. Dan Yuru slowly opened her eyes. Her face revealed a smile that was like a spring breeze. Am I not here? Where can I run to? Her voice was soft and sweet. Those who heard it couldn't help but feel pity for her. Many of the men present began to breathe heavily. This woman is really good at seducing people. Wanyan Zhongjie spat. Only men would be deceived by such a pure appearance. Women all knew what kind of flirtatious slut she was. She glanced to the side and saw that Song Qing-shu's expression was normal. She heaved a sigh of relief and couldn't help but feel proud. How could Brother Qing-shu be compared to those ordinary men? Surname Dan, you're seriously injured now. Do you still want to use your devil cults, witchcraft to charm people's hearts? Another warrior shouted. Dan Yuru shook her head. I thought the 10 great evil gods of the Demon Master Palace were amazing. Metal, wood, water, fire, and earth, the 5 of them died silently in the hands of others. Now, Heaven Destroyer, Earth Destroyer, Sun Destroyer, Moon Destroyer, and Star Destroyer only dare to use their glib tongues here. Song Qing-shu stared blankly for a moment. He vaguely remembered that he had casually dealt with some 10 great evil gods. He did not expect these people to be the other 5 people. That extinguishing sky, decimating earth was ranked in the top 2 of the 10 great evil gods. His martial arts were indeed much higher than metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. However, this Danyuru was simply playing with fire. She was obviously on the verge of death, but she provoked them again and again. However, it was precisely because of this fearlessness that these people did not dare to rashly step forward. Sigh. I didn't expect Pang Ban's subordinates to get worse and worse. At this moment, a mocking voice rang out. When the first word was spoken, the person was clearly still very far away. When the last word was spoken, the person had already appeared at the entrance of the temple. The newcomer had a fat head and big ears. He was short and stout, and his face was abnormally pale. However, no one present dared to underestimate him. Evil Buddha, Zhongzhongyo, extinguishing sky, decimating earth, naturally recognized this expert who had once fought with the demon master Pang Ban. Song Qingshu's brows furrowed slightly. The last time he had used the heavenly demon escape in the inn, his vitality had been greatly damaged. He should be recuperating now. How could he still be running around like this? Yi Chinese Zhongyo ignored extinguishing sky, decimating earth, and the others. Instead, he turned back to look at Danyuru. A look of greed flashed across his eyes. What happened to my good niece? How could she be so heavily injured and be bullied by these lackeys? Danyuru giggled. If martial uncle feels sorry for your niece, then teach these people a good lesson on my behalf. When they heard her words, extinguishing sky, decimating earth, and the others subconsciously took a step back. Someone who could fight with Pang Ban and survive was naturally not someone they could match. Zhongzhongyo glanced at them, but didn't make a move. Instead, he looked at Danyuru. My good niece, you also know that I was slightly injured some time ago. Now that my vitality has been greatly depleted, if I help you teach these people a lesson, my injuries will most likely worsen. How does my good niece intend to compensate me? Danyuru smiled sweetly, but there was a hint of coldness in the depths of her eyes. What kind of compensation would martial uncle like? Zhongzhongyo chuckled. The beauty technique that we taught can nourish both sides. My good niece is also injured now. Why don't we cultivate together so that you can recover faster? Wanyan Zhongjia couldn't help but ask Song Qingshu, cursing. Big brother Qingshu, what is the beauty technique? As he stared at the girl's sparkling eyes, Song Qingshu cursed Zhongzhongyo in his heart. Then he explained, you're just a child. You shouldn't ask so many questions. It's just an evil art that allows you to absorb energy. When Wanyan Zhongjia learned the truth, he could not help but spit. That Zhongzhongyo is truly a despicable person. He actually took advantage of the situation and even had improper thoughts about his own niece. Danyuru was also angry, but she did not show it. Instead, she smiled and said, Martial uncle, are you forgetful because you're a noble person? The beauty technique of Enweed faction is mainly used to silently ambush our enemies when a man and a woman are having sex. Since when can it be used to heal injuries? Zhongzhongyo swept his gaze over her graceful curves. As the saying goes, even if I die under a peony, I will still be a romantic even if I become a ghost. If I can have sex with a supreme beauty like my good niece, even if I have to give up my life, I believe that there are plenty of men in the world who will be willing to do so. Danyuru's smile became even sweeter. Martial uncle, you praise me too much. I don't have that much charm. When he heard her laugh and gasp, Zhongzhongyo cursed her in his heart. As expected of someone who had mastered the art of seduction in the Holy Gate for thousands of years. Forget raising her hand. Even breathing could arouse men's desires. Even if the beauty technique doesn't work, we still have the Tao Heart Demon Seed technique. We have many similar martial arts in the Holy Gate. Tao Heart Demon Seed technique? Danyuru had a strange expression on her face. Right now, the only person in the Holy Gate who knows this martial art is Demon Master Pang Ban. Martial uncle, can you obtain it from him? Zhongzhongyo's face turned red. He had lost to Pang Ban in the past, and he did not have the ability to extract a tooth from a tiger's mouth. My niece, you've been making excuses. Do you not want to compensate me? Danyuru sighed faintly. At first, I was wondering how these lackeys were able to find the shelter where I was secretly healing my injuries. Now that I've seen you, I finally understand. Zhong Zhongyo's expression became stern. My good niece, don't speak nonsense. When have the members of the Holy Gate ever betrayed their comrades? Dan Yuru could not help but laugh. Martial uncle, doesn't your conscience hurt when you say something like this? If the members of the Holy Gate really cared about the principles of the Jianghu, wouldn't they be in cahoots with those famous and righteous sects? Wanyan Zhongjia snickered. This woman is quite interesting. Her laughter was soft, and she hid in the noisy crowd, so no one noticed her. Chapter 2235. Dan Yuru shook her head. Uncle Master hasn't dared to make a move because he's afraid of my sky demon technique. If you really want your niece so badly, you could just come over yourself. Zhong Zhongyo couldn't help but lick his lips. Although he knew that she was using a charm technique, her charm technique had already reached the point where it was silent and didn't seem out of place. She was like a young girl who had just experienced her first awakening of love and was passionately inviting her lover over. Although Zhong Zhongyo's skills were slightly more profound than Dan Yuru's, as the sect leader, she definitely had some life-saving techniques that only sect leaders could cultivate, so Zhong Zhongyo didn't dare to be careless. At this moment, Mie Tian and Zhu Di also realized that this evil Zhong Zhongyo wasn't here to help Dan Yuru, so they immediately felt reassured. Seeing that Zhong Zhongyo was still hesitating, Mie Tian became a little impatient. His Highness had been in a bad mood recently, and if he couldn't complete his mission, he might have to bear the consequences. Thus, he waved his hand, and a few Mongolian warriors stealthily entered the temple and swung their blades at Dan Yuru. Didn't you say you were going to protect me? Dan Yuru didn't dodge. Instead, she looked into the eyes of the warriors pitifully. The warriors paused and suddenly changed directions, raising their blades and swinging them at Zhong Zhongyo. Zhong Zhongyo snorted coldly. With a wave of his sleeve, a few Mongolian warriors silently collapsed in front of him. Although he had been severely injured from using the heavenly demon escape earlier, he was still not someone these warriors could deal with. Dan Ryu giggled. It seems that they all think that Uncle Master is going to harm me. It seems that you're really at the end of your rope. Zhong Zhongyo wasn't angry. Instead, he was delighted. As a member of the Heaven's Mandate sect, he knew very well how strong Dan Yuru was. She didn't need to do anything normally. She just had to stand there, and no one would be willing to attack her. Now that these ordinary warriors were so close to her, she still had to rely on words to confuse them. It was obvious that her cultivation had been greatly damaged, and her charm technique had also fallen by a few realms. As soon as he finished speaking, he pounced at the Buddha statue like a large meatball. Dan Yuru didn't dare to be careless. She hurriedly got up to face him. Against an expert like Zhong Zhongyo, her charm technique wasn't very effective, so she didn't waste her energy. A crisp sound of jade rang out. Her green sleeves were already in front of her, and the two of them exchanged over 10 moves in an instant. Song Qing-shu could tell that although the two seemed to be evenly matched, Dan Yuru's current moves were mainly light and agile. She had been avoiding a head-on confrontation with Song Qing-shu. After a few exchanges of punches and kicks, the blood on the right side of her chest became thicker. Obviously, her injury had been aggravated. Demon Woman Die. Exterminating Sky, Decimating Earth saw that this was a rare opportunity, so he led his subordinates and rushed into the small temple. The sound of the jade bracelets in the small temple grew louder and louder. A pair of jade bracelets swam all over the place like wild bees and butterflies fighting for nectar, emitting an ear-piercing whistling sound. Coupled with the dimness of the temple, for a moment, not only did the large number of people not give them an advantage, but also caused chaos and people started killing each other. Be careful, it's the demonic sound soul disturbing art. Exterminating Sky, Decimating Earth hastily warned. But Song Qing-shu could tell that Dan Yuru was putting up a fierce front. In the past, the sounds released by her green jade bracelets would appear and disappear, and they would be near and far at times, but right now, the sounds were only piercing to the ears. There was no change in rhythm, and it was clear that she could not execute those techniques in her current state. Haha, I found chance. Zhong Zhongyo smiled in a ghastly manner. With a few jumps, he appeared behind Dan Yuru. His chubby hands were incredibly nimble, and he instantly sealed a few of the major acupressure points on her back. Dan Yuru froze, and the jade bracelets that had been dancing in the small temple instantly lost control. They fell to the ground. The jade bracelets were made from cold jade from the bottom of the sea, and they were as sturdy as steel. They did not shatter like normal jade. Burning text network, their martial arts had always been on par with each other. In fact, Zhong Zhongyo's martial arts were slightly stronger. Right now, Dan Yuru was heavily injured, and she was surrounded by so many people. No matter how many secret techniques Inweed faction had, they would not be able to make up for such a huge difference in strength. Zhong Zhongyo held Dan Yuru with one hand, and he secretly guarded against the Mongolian warriors with the other. My dear niece, your body is so soft. As he spoke, he moved closer to her neck and took a deep sniff. You smell so good. In the past, whenever I smelled your fragrance, I could not help but want to press you down and ravage you. It's a pity that your martial arts were too high at that time. I did not dare to do so. I didn't expect that I would finally have the chance. A bright red flash appeared on Dan Yuru's skin. When Zhong Zhongyo saw this, he quickly sealed the other major acupressure points on her body. You want to use Sky Demon Escape to die with me? Haha, have you forgotten that we are from the same faction? I know all the secret techniques, like the back of my hand. Dan Yuru gritted her teeth and said, Zhong, you plotted to kill the cult master and offended your superiors. When the time comes, the people from Heavenly Fate Cult will not let you go. Zhong Zhongyo laughed out loud. How funny. Didn't you say it yourself just now? Our sacred gate has never cared about the rules of a righteous sect. As the saying goes, those who are capable will take over. Since I have subdued you, the other people from Heavenly Fate Cult will naturally recognize me as their new cult master. Zhong, are you going to kill me or not? If not, let us do it. The annihilating sky, decimating earth had come on a mission this time. Although Zhong Zhongyo's martial arts were very high, they knew from their conversation that he was already injured. With so many people on their side, they felt more confident. Zhong Zhongyo was instantly enraged. You bunch of bastards. How could you bear to kill such a beautiful woman? Isn't that a waste of a heavenly treasure? The annihilating sky, decimating Earth's heart sank. It seemed like they had no choice but to face them head-on. Unexpectedly, the other party suddenly changed the topic. In any case, we should at least have fun with her first before killing her. Zhong Zhongyo knew how powerful Dan Yuru was. It was too dangerous to keep her by his side. He did not want her to turn the tables on him in the future. If that happened, he would definitely be in a state where he could neither live nor die. It was enough for him to have fun with her once. Moreover, his main goal this time was to absorb her energy to make up for the damage he had suffered from using Sky Demon Escape. Enjoying her body was secondary. Shameless. Wanyan Zhongjie cursed angrily. Song Qing-shu, on the other hand, felt that it was very funny. This damned fatty had quite a talent for comedy. The Mongolians looked at each other. Their mission this time was to kill Dan Yuru. It did not matter if they killed her a few hours later. They could also avoid a direct confrontation with a top-notch expert. At this moment, Risha chuckled. Evil Buddha is right. It is indeed a pity to kill such a beautiful woman. I wonder if you can let us have some fun after you are done? Zhong Zhongyo raised his eyebrows and chuckled. If you aren't afraid of being sucked dry by her beauty technique, I don't mind. She is already injured to this extent. When the time comes, all her meridians will be sealed. How will she be able to use her demonic techniques then? Risha swallowed. The annihilating sky, decimating earth frowned. Don't complicate things. Completing the mission is more important. They knew that this brother of theirs had always been lustful, but they did not expect him to be so audacious. Risha disapproved. His Highness ordered us to kill her, but he did not specify how we should kill her. Isn't playing her to death the same as killing her? Wouldn't we be helping His Highness vent his anger by playing her to death? Chapter 2236. Dan Yuru was finally afraid. She hurriedly said to Zhong Zhongyo, "Now that things have come to this, I admit defeat. I'll give you all my skills. I only ask that you give me a quick death on account of us being from the same sect. Don't let me suffer such humiliation." Zhong Zhongyo laughed and said, "I didn't expect that even our sect leader Shan, who can charm all living things, would be afraid. If you had suggested this earlier, I might have considered it. But don't you think it's too late to talk about this now? With so many strong men serving you, my dear niece, even if you die, you can still be a dissolute ghost." He was still afraid that she had some secret techniques that no one knew about. Thus, in order to completely destroy her psychological defenses, he had to make her feel extreme fear first. Wanyan Zhongjie tugged on Song Qingshu's sleeve and trembled with anger. "These people are too shameless. Brother, can you save her?" Song Qingshu was stunned. "Dan Yuru isn't a good person either. Are you sure you want to save her?" Wanyan Zhongjie nodded. "If her skills were inferior and she died at the hands of others, it would be fine. But these people are taking advantage of her in such a shameless manner. I can't bear to see a bunch of men bullying a weak girl like this." Song Qingshu suddenly realized that Wanyan Zhongjie must have been bullied by the Jin Kingdom a few years ago. She must have seen her mother protecting her from both sides. This scene must have reminded her of the past. "Okay." Song Qingshu nodded and held her hand as they walked forward. Originally, the crowd in front of them was very dense, and there was not much space between them as they brushed shoulders with each other. However, as he walked calmly, it was as if there was an invisible wall of air around him that pushed the people in front of him to the sides. "Who's squeezing?" The commotion in the crowd was finally discovered. Mietan Decimate D turned around and glared angrily at the crowd, noticing that a young man and woman had appeared in front of them. The man was handsome and tall, but everyone's gazes were attracted by the young girl beside him. She was clearly still young, but she was charming and affectionate. Her appearance was even more stunning, and she was not inferior to Dan Yuru at all. No one doubted that when she fully grew up, she would bring disaster to the country and bring disaster to the people. "Yo, I originally thought that a big beauty wasn't enough, but here comes a little beauty." Risha's eyes instantly went wide. Song Qingshu frowned, and with a wave of his hand, a Mongolian warrior beside him lost his grip on his sword, and it flew out of his hand. Before the Risha could react, he was pinned to the pillar by the long sword. Cough, cough. Risha lowered his head and looked at his chest in disbelief. He didn't even see what happened. How did he get stabbed? This was his last thought before he died. The surrounding people looked as if they had seen a ghost. Every one of them sucked in a breath of cold air and took a few steps back, forming a vacuum around Song Qingshu and his companion. Zhong Zhongyo had been a little confused at first. Why did the man and woman in front of him look so familiar? But now, he suddenly remembered something, and his lips trembled. "It's you." The two of them had been wearing masks last time, so he could only recognize them now. After saying that, he yelled and ran away without looking back. Dan Yuru's eyes widened. He used the heavenly devil escape again. Even if he managed to recover after escaping, his martial arts would probably be discounted. Miat Tian decimating Earth, and the others looked at each other. They didn't understand why the arrogant Zhong Zhongyo was acting like a mouse that had seen a cat. Just who was this young man in front of them? "Who are you, sir? Why are you obstructing our Mongolian mission?" The martial arts that the other party had used to kill Risha in an instant were a little terrifying. Mietian decimating Earth was a little afraid, so he could only use the name of Mongolia to make the other party back off. Song Qingshu said calmly, "I don't feel like killing anymore for the time being." Scram! He had just gone on a killing spree a few days ago, causing his inner demons to be a little unstable. Now, he didn't want to do it again. As soon as the word scram left his mouth, a sound wave visible to the naked eye spread out in all directions. The group of Mongolian warriors instantly lost their footing and fell to the ground one after another. Although Miet Tian decimating Earth, who had the highest level of martial arts, managed to stay standing, he was also shaken to the point of vomiting blood. When he turned back to see his subordinates lying all over the ground, how could they not know that the other party's martial arts were far superior to theirs? Now that things had come to this, how could they still care about their mission? The group of people scrambled and crawled, quickly disappearing without a trace. Song Qing-shu came before Dan Yuru and looked down at this vicious beauty from above. With a flick of his finger, he unsealed her acupuncture point. Dog, Dan Yuru regained control of herself, struggled to stand up, and thanked him. Thank you, young master, for lending a hand to save me. As she spoke, her breathing became weaker and weaker. Then, her eyes rolled back, and her whole body fell to the ground. Unexpectedly, Song Qing-shu didn't just help her up. Instead, he leaned slightly to the side and just happened to avoid her, causing Dan Yuru's body to fall heavily to the ground. Ouch! Dan Yuru seemed to have been woken up by the pain of the fall. She blinked her eyes with a face full of hidden bitterness, and her face was like a pear blossom in the rain. Young master really doesn't know how to have tender and protective feelings for the fairer sex. Song Qing-shu said indifferently, "Put away your seduction technique. It's useless on me." Wanyan Zhongjia, who was standing to the side, was immediately dissatisfied. "You woman, it was clearly me who asked my brother to save you. Why are you only thanking him and not me? And as soon as you got out of trouble, you seduced me. You're really not a good person." She didn't want to expose Song Qing-shu's identity in front of outsiders, so she omitted the two words Qing-shu. However, the simple way she called him brother made Song Qing-shu's heart skip a beat. He couldn't help but think of the scenes in the Japanese anime that he had seen in his previous life. Dan Yuru's expression became solemn, and she said apologetically, "It's just that it's hard to change a habit of many years. I hope you too can forgive me. And thank you, young lady." Seeing that her tone was sincere and her demeanor was dignified, Wanyan Zhongjia didn't say anything else. Song Qing-shu couldn't help but sigh. It said that sect leader Dan is the first woman in thousands of years to practice the sky demon technique to the extreme. Now that I've seen it, it's indeed a well-deserved reputation. If he hadn't known about her in advance, he would probably have been deceived by her dignified and pure demeanor. My insignificant cultivation is not worth mentioning in front of you, young master, Dan Yuru said shyly with her head lowered. Song Qing-shu didn't feel like exchanging pleasantries with her and asked directly, "How are your injuries?" Dan Yuru looked at the right side of her body and said with a frown, "I don't know why the wounds haven't healed. Even if I forcefully seal the acupoints to stop the bleeding, the wounds will split open again before long." Song Qing-shu explained, "That's because you were shot by a gun, and the bullet is still embedded in your flesh. Naturally, the wounds won't heal, and the bleeding won't stop. Please save me, young master." Dan Yuru's expression changed slightly, and she hurriedly said. Song Qing-shu pondered for a moment, then nodded and said, "All right." Dan Yuru was very close to the Ruyang Palace, and she was also Su Yewu's enemy. As the saying goes, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Saving her would be a good way to make things difficult for Su Yewu. Of course, the root cause was that she was beautiful enough. If she had been an ugly person, he probably wouldn't have cared. After all, it was human nature to look at people's faces. Song Qing-shu was quite calm about this, and he wasn't embarrassed to admit it. "Thank you, young master." Dan Yuru was overjoyed. She had just seen him in action, and now that he was willing to save her, her life was saved. Song Qing-shu nodded, then pointed at her bloodstained clothes and said, "Take off your clothes first." Chapter 22:37. Wanyan Zhongjia was immediately displeased. He pouted and said, "That Zhong fellow also said that he would save you as long as you obeyed him. I've never seen you take off your clothes so obediently." Dan Yuru smiled. "Of course it's different. Young master is like a celestial being. That short, fat, and ugly Zhongyou can't compare to you. Moreover, young master has a good heart. How can that treacherous and shameless Zhongyou compare to you?" Wanyan Zhongjia snorted. "I suddenly regret asking my brother to save you. Song Qing-shu finally spoke. I don't believe that the leader of the Heavenly Mandate sect would be so obedient for such a reason. There are countless people in the martial world who are better than Zhong Zhongyo in terms of appearance and character. How come I don't see the leader like this? Dan Yuru bit her lip and hesitated. After a while, she replied, Actually, I overestimated my abilities and used a charm technique on young master. As a result, I suffered a backlash. I can't refuse young master's words. Song Qing-shu was startled. You recognized me? Dan Yuru nodded. Young master was with this little sister last time. Her ghostly martial arts were the same as last time. Moreover, because I used a charm technique on you last time, I'm very sensitive to your aura. I originally thought that you were a senior in the martial world. I didn't expect you to be so young. As she spoke, the skin on her neck turned rosy. Wanyan Zhongjie was concerned about something else. You just said that you can't refuse my brother's words? That's right. A hint of bitterness appeared on Dan Yuru's face. You'll obey any request? Wanyan Zhongjie's eyes widened. Yes. A hint of shyness appeared on Dan Yuru's face. Of course, given her behavior, it was hard to tell if she was being sincere or not. Song Qing-shu was immediately amused. Then why do you use charm techniques to attack people all day? Aren't you afraid of backlash? Dan Yuru smiled bitterly. How many people in the world have a cultivation like young masters? If she was facing a top expert whose name shook the martial world, she naturally wouldn't carelessly use charm techniques. Last time, she had accidentally kicked an iron plate. As Song Qing-shu examined her wound, he said, I still don't believe that the backlash of a mere charm technique is enough to make you listen to me. One had to know that even the great soul transfer technique couldn't make a person listen to him when they were completely awake. Dan Yuru then explained, Of course, it's not everything. Generally speaking, it can't go against my subconscious too much. Song Qing-shu nodded. It was just like love. When a person fell in love with another person, they would do many irrational things for the other person. However, no one would be crazy enough to do things that went against their values for the other half. The backlash from the charm technique should be the same. For example, if he ordered her to commit suicide or destroy the Heavens Will sect, she would definitely not listen to anything that greatly conflicted with her subconscious. However, he immediately thought that if he asked her to sleep with him, would she agree or refuse? This thought flashed through his mind, but Song Qing-shu didn't take it to heart. He had many female confidants around him. Even in Xing-Qing manner, many of them were available at his beck and call. There was no need to think about this kind of thing. From a normal person's point of view, women were a big deal. However, with a certain level of status and wealth, problems related to women weren't a problem at all. On the contrary, there were many other things that were worth caring about and working hard on. How old are you really now? Feeling the jealousy of the girl beside him, Song Qing-shu changed the topic. I'm 16 years old, Dan Yuru answered. You're 16? Song Qing-shu was so angry that he laughed. Then I'm still after the odds. Dan Yuru didn't understand what he meant by after the odds, but she could sense the dissatisfaction in his tone. She hurriedly explained, I'm 28 years old. This doesn't count as lying. I hope you don't mind. Why would I mind? Song Qing-shu smiled. In this era, 28 years old was indeed an old lady. Of course, she didn't know that in her era, this age was considered the prime of one's life. He originally thought that Dan Yuru was an old demon like Li Qiushui, but he didn't expect her to be so young in this world. He didn't think that she was lying to him. With such a high level of martial arts, he would immediately notice if there was anything wrong with her breathing or heartbeat. Focus your mind. I'm going to help you force the bullet out. In this short amount of time, Song Qing-shu had already checked out the condition of her injury. His hands were only a blur as he quickly poked around her body. Finally, he slapped his palm on her back. A cluster of fine and small iron beads shot out and directly penetrated the opposite wall. Naturally, the guns of this era couldn't only have one bullet. Otherwise, with Dan Yuru's martial arts, she would have been able to force the bullet out after so long. Okay, this is Hung Shan Sek's Heavenly Fragrance Intermittent Ointment. It has a miraculous effect on external injuries. Apply it on your wound, and you'll recover after a period of rest. Song Qing-shu wiped his hands and handed her a porcelain bottle. After Dan Yuru applied the ointment, she put on her clothes again and knelt on the ground to salute. Yuru will never forget your great kindness. If you have any orders in the future, Yuru will definitely be at your service. All right, enough with the pleasantries. Take care of yourself. I don't want you to be killed when I need you, Song Qing-shu said calmly. Now that young Master Meng has forced all the bullets out for me, if I'm caught again, I won't be a leader of sect in vain. There was a faint confidence in Dan Yuru's tone. It was the confidence and calmness that came from climbing to the top step by step in the Devil Gate over the years. That's good. Song Qing-shu smiled. Have a good rest. I have to leave as well. This place has already been exposed, so it's not a good place to stay for long. Dan Yuru said goodbye to the two of them. As the leader of a sect, she had a lot of things to take care of. Furthermore, with Zhong Zhongyo's incident, she couldn't just let it go. After the two of them parted ways, Wanyan Zhongjia couldn't help but sigh. I know that the one surnamed Dan is a seductress, but after interacting with her for a while, it's hard to feel bad about her. Song Qing-shu replied. Her seduction techniques have already reached the highest level. She can often moisten things silently. I didn't expect her to be able to seduce both men and women. Wanyan Zhongjia suddenly laughed. But Brother Qing-shu is still the most amazing. Even in the face of that seductress's seduction, you remained unmoved. I'm afraid there aren't many men in the world who can have this kind of willpower. Is it because I'm here that you're too embarrassed to do anything to her? Song Qing-shu couldn't help but pinch her cheeks. He felt the soft skin of a young girl. I'm usually surrounded by beautiful seductresses like you. How could I be so easily seduced by others? Sensing his intimate actions, Wanyan Zhongjia couldn't help but feel happy. She hugged his arm and rested her head on his shoulder, saying, Brother Qing-shu, when I grow up, I'll definitely be prettier than her. Feeling the youthful vitality of a young girl on his arm, Song Qing-shu's heart skipped a beat. He couldn't help but reply, Right now, you're not inferior to her either. Really? Of course. The two of them strolled through the mountains and fields, chatting casually. Song Qing-shu patiently listened to Wanyan Zhongjia talk about his childhood, and Wanyan Zhongjia would occasionally ask him about his past. This kind of stroll under the moon made the two of them feel closer, both physically and mentally. The next day, when Song Qing-shu arrived at the training ground, Xue Baochai and the yellow-robed woman were already used to his not returning at night. They originally wanted to reprimand him, but they couldn't help but remind him with concern that Zhong Zan has a violent temper. You should surrender as soon as possible to avoid any danger. Chapter 2238. When Song Qing-shu got on the stage, he vaguely heard some people talking in private. Is it this shameless guy again? Compared to his shamelessness, I think he's very lucky. I think his luck has come to an end this time. That Tubo prince is not easy to deal with. I heard that he is determined to win the princess of Xixia. On the way to Xixia, he sent people to set up roadblocks everywhere to stop the young people who came to participate in the competition. Those who are slightly careless will be beaten until their hands and feet are broken. This time, this shameless guy will be taught a terrible lesson. Song Qing-shu looked depressed. He had only bribed his opponent with money in the first round. Why did he cause so much resentment? In this case, he would let them see what it meant to have eyes, but failed to recognize Mount Tai in this competition. But after a long time, Zhong Zan did not show up. Everyone curiously looked at the behavior of the Tubo delegation and found that not only Zhong Zan did not come, but also the beautiful and dignified princess of Jincheng. Song Qing-shu frowned and thought, why is Jiu Maji not here? What the hell are they doing? The referee confirmed again and found that no one from Tubo came to participate in the competition, so he announced that Song Qing-shu was the winner. Damn it, is there any justice? How come this guy won again? His opponents always have problems in every round. Is this guy poisonous? Why is this guy so lucky? Song Qing-shu could not help but spread out his hands. Is it my fault? When he returned to the Southern Song delegation, Even the yellow-robed woman looked at him with a very strange look. Now, I am a little scared. If I don't admit defeat in advance in the next round, will I also encounter such an accident? Song Qing-shu looked wronged. This time, it really has nothing to do with me. Do you mean that the previous times have something to do with you? The yellow-robed woman keenly realized something. Look at my honest and pure face. I'm really innocent, Song Qing-shu said with a straight face. The yellow-robed woman's face reddened as she was being stared at so closely. She hurriedly moved back and said, "Pa, your shameless appearance reminds me of someone." Song Qing-shu chuckled and didn't dare to say anything else lest he got himself into trouble. On the stage, the second round began. Qinghai Pai Luo was up against Liao Xiaofeng, the Mahamudra of the Tantric Buddhism sect versus the 18 dragon subduing palms. The battle between the two was incomparably exciting, but there was still no suspense to the outcome. How could Si Luo be a match for Xiaofeng? He quickly admitted defeat and got off the stage. Song Qing-shu, who was watching the fight, couldn't help but frown. He could see that Si Zheluo hadn't used his full strength. Even though he still couldn't defeat Xiaofeng with his martial arts, he shouldn't have lost so quickly. Moreover, after he lost, his face revealed a faint smile. It was really strange. The next battle was between Su Liuwu and Miyamoto Musashi. After Miyamoto Musashi got on the stage, he directly dropped his sword and admitted defeat. "I can't think of a way to break your gun. If I force myself to fight, I will only be injured, so I admit defeat." The surrounding people all expressed their understanding. After all, everyone had witnessed Dan Yuru's miserable condition the day before. The power of a gun was really not something that flesh and blood could resist. The woman in yellow couldn't help but exclaim, "That's not right." With the martial arts that Miyamoto Musashi had displayed before, Su Liuwu couldn't move easily. At such a close distance, it should be very difficult for a gun to hurt him. Why did he surrender? Song Qing-shu thought to himself. Mongolia and Japan had long since joined forces. Could it be that Miyamoto Musashi really fought with Su Liuwu? At the thought of this, he felt extremely depressed. They had both cheated to make their opponent surrender, but why didn't anyone scold Su Liuwu? Moreover, he hadn't cheated in the past few rounds. Was it because Jia Baoyu looked like a pretty boy and seemed easy to bully? The next battle was between Zhai Xingzi of the Xingxiu sect and Zhuang Juxian of the Beggar sect. After Zhai Xingzi got on the stage, he asked coldly, "Many of the martial arts that you used are from our Xingxiu sect. Where did you secretly learn them from?" Song Qing-shu nodded to himself. Zhuang Juxian's martial arts were basically taught to him by Azi, as well as the poison techniques of the Xingxiu sect. Perhaps others couldn't tell, but how could Zhai Xingzi not recognize it? Hearing his opponent question, Zhuang Juxian was momentarily speechless. Below the stage, Quan Guanqing spoke on his behalf. "Don't talk nonsense. Our sect master's martial arts are unparalleled. Why would need to learn your unorthodox martial arts? Sect master, don't talk nonsense with him. Teach him a good lesson." Okay. Although Zhuang Juxian was a little slow, he knew that being questioned like this in front of so many people was also a rather embarrassing thing. Therefore, he directly charged toward his opponent like a cannonball. Die. Seeing that his opponent was coming at him aggressively, Zhai Xingzi didn't dare to take it head-on. With a tap of his feet, his body lightly flew to the other side of the stage, avoiding his opponent's fierce attack. His figure was faintly discernible, and he was also somewhat handsome. The lightness skill that he displayed this time attracted many cheers from the audience. Even a yellow-robed woman nodded and said, "No wonder he dares to call himself Zhai Xingzi. His lightness skill is indeed unique." However, Shui Baochai couldn't help but say, "I think his lightness skill may not be as good as sister's, but he dares to call himself Zhai Xingzi. Isn't he a little too arrogant?" At this time, the situation on the stage changed again. Obviously, Zhai Xingzi was not satisfied with continuously dodging and defending. With a shake of his robe, a green flame suddenly ignited in front of him. Obviously, he was also afraid of his opponent's martial arts. He knew that normal heart-piercing nails, blissful thrust, and other techniques would not be able to hurt him. Therefore, he directly took out his trump card, intending to quickly end the battle. This time, Shue Baochai, who was below the stage, was extremely impressed. What a strong inner strength. He can actually create flames out of thin air. The yellow-robed woman shook her head. His breathing and expiration method shouldn't have such a strong inner strength. However, I also don't understand how he created flames. At the side, Song Qingshu couldn't help but feel a sense of superiority in terms of intelligence. Zhai Xingzi should have used something like white phosphorus. This kind of common knowledge in chemistry could be known by any high school student in the future. Seeing the green flame coming at him, Zhuang Juxian didn't dare to take it head-on. He quickly dodged it. Who knew that the green flame seemed to have eyes and actually turned to follow him? Zhuang Juxian wasn't good at Qinggong, and his martial arts were even more shallow. After a few rounds, he was forced into a corner by the green flame. Seeing that he couldn't avoid it, he gathered his inner strength and directly attacked the green flame with his palm. The green flame was immediately scattered. Zhai Xingzi was shocked. The strength of his opponent's inner strength was somewhat beyond his expectations. However, now that the arrow was knocked on the bow, it couldn't be released. The power of his palm suddenly increased, and the scattered green flame turned into a big fireball and flew over. Zhuang Juxian had just dispersed the green flame with his palm, so he couldn't help but feel relieved. He continued to circulate his inner strength and attacked with the wind of his palm. The fireball could no longer move forward and was even slowly being forced back. Zhai Xingzi's expression was miserable. He forcefully bit the tip of his tongue and spat out a mouthful of blood. When the flame was spat out by his blood, it dimmed at first and then became very bright. It was so bright that the audience couldn't open their eyes. His body spun rapidly like a top for a dozen rounds. His big sleeves fluttered, and the whole fireball suddenly expanded. It was like a wall of fire that pressed toward his opponent. The lady in yellow couldn't help but sigh. Xingqiu sect is notorious, but it can stand tall in the martial arts circle for decades without falling. It really has its ability. Many people in the field nodded in surprise. It was obvious that they had the same judgment. The people from the Ming dynasty couldn't help but feel happy when they saw Zhuang Juxian being swallowed by the flame. They couldn't wait for him to be burned alive. Suddenly, a clear cracking sound came from the challenge ring. It was like the sound of ice breaking. Everyone fixed their eyes on it and saw that the surging fire spear seemed to have suddenly frozen. The next moment, a cold air that could be seen with the naked eye swept up and actually froze the wall of fire. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.